Hello, everybody, and welcome to the deepest dive on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom from MinnMax. I'd argue this is the best, most thorough discussion about Echoes of Wisdom on the internet, and that MinnMax is a place about games, friends, getting better. I'm Ben Hanson, but thank God I'm not alone. I'm joined by Haley MacLean.
Whoa!
Whoa! I'm joined by Jeff Marchiafava.
I didn't bring any props.
Where's the props, dude? I'm joined by Kelsey Lewin.
Hi, I also don't have a cool party trick. I feel really showed up right now.
Watch the way she wears that hat. No one does it quite like Kelsey. It's like the hood from Zelda. All right, here we go, everybody. This is a Game Club discussion. It's a two-part Game Club discussion for Echoes of Wisdom. So in this discussion, we're covering everything in the game from the starting area, first dungeon, and then we went to the Zora's Domain equivalent, the Jabul Waters. So we're covering Jabul Waters and the first area, not Gerudo area. We're going to be covering that in the next discussion, which is going to be 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, we're going to cover everything else in the discussion. So the way this works is we have a ton of comments, questions, thoughts that we've collected over on Patreon. If you support us at any tier on Patreon, you can submit your thoughts. That's where we're pulling all of these comments from. And so if there's any point during this discussion where you say, these hacks don't know what they're talking about, they've never made an echo in their lives, you can fix what we get wrong. Fill the gaps that we leave behind, everybody, by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Join our Game Club discussion. Help give this game the discussion it deserves, because it's way more fun to talk about it as a group. And so share your thoughts on everything else in this game. And then 2 weeks from now, we will read those thoughts on this discussion series here. And as an extra bonus, because we appreciate you all supporting independent games media, but if you enjoy this discussion, obviously you can hit subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's a huge thing. And as a super bonus, if you support MinnMax on Patreon at the $5 tier, if you upgrade to the $5 tier or you join us at the $5 tier before October 4th, before the end of Friday, October 4th, we will DM you on Patreon with a code for 1,000 times resist. One of Kelsey Lewin's favorite games of the year. Is that the way to put it?
Yes, yeah, gonna be in my very, very top for the end of the year.
Yeah, it's definitely a hidden gem of this year. So if you like, games led by a woman main character, I'm trying to think of the overlaps with Zelda that's in there. But if you like story-focused games, bold, confident storytelling, adult storytelling without being pornographic and gross. But I don't know, Kelsey, I'm trying to think of what the closest thing to compare this sci-fi game 1,000 Times Resist to. Is it like Nier fans? I'm trying to think of who the wheelhouse is.
If you've played 13 Sentinels and really liked 13 Sentinels, I would say you'd really like this game. Similar storytelling vibes and cool plot twists and mysteries that unravel throughout it. Yeah. I know it's also not a everybody's played this game and so everyone can use it as a reference point, but that's probably my closest one.
No, I love it. Yeah, so it's sitting at overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. Show the developers some love. Sunset Visitor is the name of the developer. So show them some love. Support us at the $5 tier on Patreon. You unlock the podcast version of all of the deepest dives. Haley MacLean's weekly show called Bonus Pod, which is the companion show to the MinnMax show, early and ad-free access to the MinnMax show, and a ton of other benefits. So get all of those benefits, and we'll DM you a code for 1,000 times resist on Steam. So thanks for supporting independent games media. Jeff, we collected hundreds and hundreds of comments over on Patreon from people playing through this chunk of the game with us. And also, which I mentioned in the Discord for MinnMax, they're also chatting it up in there in a channel dedicated to this. And that's really the sweet spot for Deepest Dives. But for the stuff submitted on Patreon, Jeff, what was the most common comment? We play this every time. The most common comment for the opening
and it always
chunks
catches me by surprise. Was it...
Now, Jeff, before you guys, I want to let you know, don't overthink it. But also, Jeff, don't underthink this one.
Medium think.
Medium think it. Just lob it right down the middle, ma'am.
Playing as Link.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Nope. Haley, what do you think?
Most versatile echo.
They're saying this echo's the best. Okay. Kelsey, what do you think?
Echo.
Beds.
Honestly, very little bed talk. I was stunned and confused. So if we're talking in general, the most common comment was people being like, I love the ecosystem. This is so cool. I love this combat. This is so weird and funky. But if you want to get specific, and the deepest dives are all about getting specific, technically the most repeated specific comment was people talking about right and left. those like assistants to the king. They were just really into those two, and the fact that they were called right and left. Hey, look, I don't write these comments, but
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
I didn't like think them phonetically. That's weird.
It's the most common comment, Jeff, that people left when they wrote.
Oh,
That's
you're
right.
so close.
Thank you so much.
When
all right.
they write in.
Next time, everybody. Here we go. Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Kelsey, how you feeling about this game? We got a ton of specifics to dive into, but big picture stuff. How's it going for you?
Good. So I've probably been playing like for the least amount of days as everyone here, but I am really, really loving this game. I am someone who always struggled to get into traditional Zelda games until like the Breath of the Wilds and Tears of the Kingdom came along. And this is like, I feel like this is the perfect marriage of the two. It gives you the sort of, some level of weirdo freedom where like there's not one answer to all the puzzles. And so you don't have to, sit around and bang your head against the wall if you have trouble coming up with like the real thing. Beds work for just about everything, combos of beds and trampolines and stuff. And I find myself using those a lot and feeling that same kind of like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild feeling where I feel like I got one over on the developers and like obviously they just expect me to do this stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really satisfying.
It is. And it's like, I think that if you got drunk with the directors of this game over at Grezzo over there, which is interesting to note, in the development of the game, the fact that this isn't internal Nintendo. This is the first, Kelsey, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the first mainline new Zelda entry developed outside of Nintendo since Minish Cap with Capcom?
Wow.
Unless I'm missing something, but let me know if I'm wrong. But like I don't think there is a quote unquote like intended solution. You know what I mean? I think it is all just like, hey, if you found something that works, that's great. But like I'm having such a good time, and it is so similar to Tears of the Kingdom over any other Zelda, where there's just moments where I'm trying to solve a puzzle, like, there's a water current going in a circle and I'm trying to climb to the top, yada, yada. And the river is just like filled with remnants of beds and boxes. And as I'm saying, this is so dumb what I'm trying to do here, then all right, there you go. It technically worked. Ta-da. And it is so much better than beating your head against a wall trying to find the one path that can work when they just give you a smorgasbord of like, I don't know, just be creative. As long as you're having fun, who's it hurting,
And then you watch a streamer do the same puzzle and they do it in 5 seconds with the obvious and quote unquote intended route for the quickest result. And you're like, oh my God, they didn't even use a bed. They just did that. That makes way more sense.
Yeah, but that's probably like the sweet middle ground. Because then I think like the quickest result is probably people just kind of speed running this thing, which I think is going to be a whole nother plateau of just people breaking the hell out of this thing. But yeah, Jeff, what do you think about Zelda so far?
I'm certainly enjoying it. I think the ecosystem works better than I was maybe expecting, and I like combat a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah,
it's a fun, weird mix to just be like, all right, well, which enemies am I going to spawn and then watch them get me out of this problem? And there seems like there's more kind of variety to that in this game than the last two Zelda games. The last two Zelda games, it always felt like, just hit the thing with the biggest thing you got and like charge up attack and make them fall down and then just kind of keep doing that. And you didn't really have to worry about elemental attacks that much. But here it's like you'll like something will come out and it'll be like, well, okay, do I send the snakes at them because they're fast and I can spawn a bunch of them at one time? Or like, well, but they kind of got a shell, so like I need something spiky to go after them. And it's like I find myself getting into situations where it's like, I know which guy to send into this, and that's more satisfying than I thought it was gonna be. I would say like I'm enjoying it overall. I feel like the best word that I could describe this game in, and I don't mean it to be condescending, but it sounds like it. But like to me, the game is cute, and it's kind of like it's that sense of like the last two Zelda games were so big and quote unquote epic, and this feels like a smaller, more contained, just it's kind of like quaint and a charming thing, and like every interaction that the characters have, it all kind of stems from this kind of art style of like little almost little toys interacting with each other. And they kind of wrote it that way. And everything, like nothing is like super big and scary or, like I guess like technically the world is falling apart, but it doesn't feel dire. It feels just like kind of this cute, fun thing. And I kind of just go from, one event to the next being like, oh, that's fun and that's cute. And
yeah, I want you to tell Zelda that, like the idea of her dad hunting her down in the world and putting a wanted poster. No, it's cute and fun because the color palette's great. Megan R, by the way, wrote in talking about like how she just loves the color palette in this game specifically. And there is something like Wayward Prophet wrote in on Patreon saying, it can't be overstated how much that bona fide Zelda charm brings to a game world. When I first stepped into Soothorn Village and took in the lovely music, the reflections in the crystal blue pond, the lazy puffs of smoke from the chimneys, it reminded me why I've put so many hours into this series just putzing around. This is yet another iteration of Hyrule, and I simply love spending time in it. I don't know, like I think, so I was streaming this game on MinnMax's Twitch, and I had a lot of people jump in, and there's kind of a lot of skepticism. Like, is this really that good? I don't think it's going to be that good. Are you actually enjoying this? Like that type of tone. And maybe it's just because Zelda is not a sacred franchise for me either, Kelsey. I think we're pretty much in that same camp of like enjoying the last couple a lot more than the earlier entries. Like I love Link's Awakening, obviously, and stuff if you want to go way back in time. But I think just treating this like just as if you strip Zelda out of it, and we don't have to because there's a lot of Zelda in this, but just as like a puzzle adventure game, it's like, this is so damn fun. It is so wacky. It is so weird. And I am so thankful for just every strange moment I have in this game, for just the fact that a franchise this big and a company this big can take a swing that is so odd and unexpected. And I want to say janky, but not quite janky. Is it
that odd?
Oh, it's odd. I mean, absolutely. When it's getting to the point of like, I'm spawning a bed that floats in water, and then I lay down in the bed to heal myself as my attack crows just go murder the enemies for me. It's like, this is a weird direction for Zelda.
But we just did 2 games that kind of established Zelda is a weird game now. Like, now Zeldas can be weird.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's always been weird in its own different way, but kind of physicsy systems weird, I guess is kind of the specific thing here.
Yeah, like, I don't know. This actually just feels like a really natural evolution to me. Like, for all the people who have been, they've liked Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but are actual, big Zelda fans and big classic Zelda fans, this game just feels like the kind of obvious marriage of those two things. And the fact that it's Zelda instead of Link is like almost a non-factor in the game. Like, I don't even think about it because it's just like, yeah, this is like old Zelda plus new Zelda combined into a game where you have dungeons, but you solve things in silly physics ways.
Right. Yeah, I can dig it. Haley, how you feeling?
Oh, I'm really enjoying it. I like it a lot. I agree with what Kelsey just said. It really feels like, what do you do after Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? And it's this. It's applied those really ingenious game design ideas to a format that's not just open world. I know technically this is open world because you could go anywhere, but it's a little diorama game. Like, it doesn't hit the same as an open world RPG like Breath of the Wild. And it's just fun because you're playing Link's Awakening remake. It's like, okay, yeah, it's Link's Awakening like I remember when I was a little kid, but just really pretty. And this feels great, but it still is like classic Zelda functionality and like how the games used to operate, which was very linear. That one was pretty unique because you could kind of go do whatever you wanted. But playing Wind Waker or Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword or all the other mainline 3D ones, it's like go X, X, Y, Y, Z, and that's just how they float. And I love those games and playing those games still. It's not a detriment to them, but you can very much feel like they don't necessarily want to go back to linear, but they also want to deviate from the now two versions of the same game they've sort of made. So this, of course, feels like the natural next step, which is let's do a different genre style, like more top-down isometric sort of energy, but you can still feel all the Breath of the Wildness in all the puzzles and how you figure them out and the tools they give you. And even the UI is like almost identical at this point too, which I thought was interesting as well. The way the missions pop up, the little icons on top of their head, like they're very much trying to remind you, this is the Breath of the Wild universe and this is just another game that came out after that. And we're allowed to take that format and deviate it into other things, and that's okay. It's still going to be good. I think it's a pretty smart next step, to be honest.
Yeah, it is weird to think of like, Tears of the Kingdom is just out last year. Like it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And I feel like how many conversations did we have wrapping up that deepest dive and even on the main MinnMax show of talking about like, I don't know how they can top this. I don't know what they're going to do. Like what else could they do in the sandbox to give us more tools? And the idea that like a year later we'd have the answer and it's just combine that formula with the Link's Awakening remake. Ta-da, here you go. But it's still going to feel new. That's wild.
That is true, but it also makes me feel like, okay, this works for one game, but what are they going to do after that? Like, what do you keep like? You can't. How many times can you do this formula again? Like they found a neat little niche where it's like, okay, now you're spawning more, and it's really more enemies more than other things, and like they built a cool system for it that's going to work for this game. I still don't like. It still feels like the Zelda as a franchise is like completely blowing in the wind in terms of like where do we go next and what is the core feeling of this franchise going to be in the future.
It's now just exploration and creativity. Ta-da. But I love them being backed more into a corner of creativity of like, all right, now every game you have to have something as wild as the Echoes. You know, if the messaging from Anuma and the team has been like, hey, we don't think we can kind of go back to that more traditional Zelda formula. And all the interviews that they had on Nintendo's site for this one seems to also be mirroring that idea of like, we need to take a big swing in some direction. And this game, as it was noted by several people like Paulo here, who wrote in on Patreon, that this game technically started out as a Zelda maker. And they were working on that for like a year. And then was down to like cloning the objects and stuff. And it's like, you know what, at a certain point, I think this just is the game and we don't want to make a Zelda maker. We want to just like spam a bunch of weird stuff around the environment because it does feel like Zelda editor : the game. And the fact that it works on a game design level, like that's just wild to me. So Troidal Power wrote in with an interesting take saying he was playing the game with his kid. He said, the thing that blew my mind in watching my son Atticus play, congratulations Atticus, I'm playing the game, was that he isn't steeped in years of Zelda tradition. I kept seeing things on the map I assumed I'd have to come back for later with a hook shot or some cool boots or a magical magnifying glass, but he'd see them and yell, bed parkour! And he'd build a rickety scaffold up a cliff face to get them. This is absolutely a Zelda game, but it's a Zelda game that rewards not looking at it like a Zelda game.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's why you and I are enjoying it so much, Ben. Is and I don't know, I just can't speak for Haley and Jeff so much, but like I've started a lot of Zelda games. I've finished very few of them because I do usually just kind of lose interest by the time there's some kind of like, you know, there's a hard puzzle here, or I just keep messing it up on the last step, and I'm just like, screw it. I missed one button press here and I got to start it all over and I don't care. And so, yeah. And so being able to approach it knowing that there is not just like one single solution to anything has been really rewarding for me. And it's led to me doing some really stupid things where I don't even look at like, there have been a couple of times where I'm like, ooh, I bet I can, you know, bed ladder my way up this waterfall, or maybe if I put a trampoline on this bed or whatever. And then like, there's a way to just walk up the cliff. And you don't have to swim up the waterfall. I just try to do it the hard way.
Yeah, I know. I keep overthinking it. And then everyone in the chat's like, hey, you remember you have that spider? It's like, oh, that's right. The answer so many times is use the spider and climb up the stupid rope and call it a day.
Off the water block? That's it.
Yeah,
the water block was a game changer.
That's just an elevator now.
Yeah. It feels like, oh, am I going to have to leave the bed behind? Because I really liked using that bed all the time. But Pancake Time says, I was annoyed by having to constantly create beds and tables to platform up ledges until I unlocked the water block echo. Being able to span them for a vertical pillar you can swim up feels like the most OP traversal method in the game. You get it so early. In fact, I skipped part of the second dungeon by just stacking them up the big wall to the boss key door.
Oh.
I didn't even think about that. But yeah, you know, you're waiting for like the jet to push higher and higher in that first water temple. Like that's an interesting idea that, yeah, I bet that is totally going to be the speedrunner's path. It's just, yeah, you can do those extra two if you need to, but you got this thing called the water block. All right, my main criticism of this game at this point, just to get it as sour negative as possible, is the trampoline echo. Lovely, but I cannot handle a trampoline in a game where you don't get an extra high boost if you time the jump well on it.
I know.
That's unforgivable in my mind. And honestly, I popped the cartridge out and I swallowed it after I realized that's the direction they were going. It was horrifying.
They warned against that on the box.
I know.
you're
Well,
in
too bad. Let's see. More general stuff before we dive into specifics, if you're up for it. Alive Girl writes in and says, as a girl who grew up playing video games, it was always so interesting to see which games were obviously developed to be, quote, for girls. All too often, I felt like girl games were simplified and content shallow, and it's nice to see our first turn as Zelda be packed with puzzles, fun, tech, and way more content than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. I always think about if I had this game when I was, 7, like it's so day and night. It's so easy to forget what that marketing style was like back then, but it truly was the Wild West of wanting to play cool games and just getting Barbie Scuba Diver or something for Christmas. And you're like, damn it. And then seeing my brother play Link's Awakening and waiting until he falls asleep to steal it out of his Game Boy and put it in mine. Like it was rough out there for a little gamer girl wanting to play what you wanted to play. Not that my parents didn't let me play games. It's just that that's what you got gifted.
Right.
It's like, oh, the pink one. Here you go. The Walmart bin section where there's a stack of pink ones and then all the gray and blue vibes over there. And you just always got the pink ones. Hamtaro Ham Ham Heartbreak is a girl game and is one of the best games of all time. There's outliers, of course, but
Best games of all time.
She's not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
It's incredible.
I get it. I think
Talk
we
about
streamed
puzzles.
a little bit. Yeah,
that has
that's true.
very good puzzles. I still sometimes get stumped when I look back at some of those puzzles.
I never beat it as a kid.
It was so hard.
It was kind of hard.
Literally so hard.
And that was Alpha Dream, right? Like the Mario and Luigi team?
I think it was, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I think so. If these were the quote unquote girl games that got marketed to me as a kid, it just would have been such a different energy. And that's not even really done anymore, right? Like you just get a Switch and you play your games as a kid now, which I love.
But, it's interesting to think of even this year, Nintendo having Princess Peach Showtime, which seems like a solid game from Goodfeel. I only played the demo, but I don't think anybody playing that's like, this is a full rich experience, where I feel like Echoes of Wisdom very much is that. So it's nice that even in 1 year, they're arcing in the right direction of like, yeah, you play Zelda, but also it's complicated and weird and big.
Princess Peach Showtime was just a vibe with pretty outfits and some side-scrolling gameplay. Have fun, because not everything has to be like brain scratcher, whatever genre that's still marketed slightly towards younger girls. And not even the fact that Zelda's the protagonist now makes this a girl game or whatever, how you want to think. But it is just, it's almost like waiting for there finally be a female president. It's like, now the ceiling has broken. Zelda is playable and we can all move on with our lives. It feels
exactly
like a momentous occasion in a weird way.
Dr. Rock says, it's somewhat poetic that her first action as Zelda is to shatter the crystal holding her hostage. She's set free after years of wondering if there would ever be a time when the titular princess would star as a protagonist, and we get to help her break through, finally removing her from her role as the series' damsel into a new era of Zelda. And then Sam L says, after 38 years, the first thing we get to do as Zelda is use her fists. And that's awesome. What a girl boss moment.
What do you guys think
and
about
break
her
the
not
crystal
speaking?
ceiling?
That's right. Woo!
I really thought she was going to talk, because I always just kind of, I guess the rule is if you're the protagonist, you don't talk in Zelda games now, because Zelda's spoken in other, not even like type voice acting like in Breath of the Wild, but in Twilight Princess and Wind Waker and stuff, she talks to Link and there's bubbles beneath her. It's always Link that just goes, huh? And she goes, oh, your name is Link? Nice to meet you, So, but now she's getting that treatment. I was almost kind of wanting it to be, she gets to have bubbles too for some reason, but they didn't go that way.
Yeah, it is weird. She just does kind of like the simple shrug and then they keep moving on. But the weird part then is, Catherine writes in about this saying, I love that Link is canonically unable to speak in this game, so they don't have to come up with an NPC voice for him or have a scene of him and Zelda doing the silent protagonist nods at each other back and forth.
Yeah, like what would they say?
That's why I am confused about Zelda not speaking, is it's not explained that she's mute as far as I know. Like she's clearly like talking to people. We're just not.
We
don't get to read what she's saying.
I guess, it's just kind of that classic thing, but I get that idea of like, you can't have her doing that and then Link just doing that back at her. So if there are interactions of those two,
the
talking
king's
to each
going
other.
to be like, Zelda just said she He's very happy to see Link. Like
Right.
someone's gonna have to be in the room to translate for us.
Yeah, they're never going to be alone in a room together, I think. Is the
Maya writes in and says, I love how Zelda does not know Link. To her, he's just some dude in green coming out of nowhere and disappearing nearly as quickly. He's always been the main character, and having this perspective shift is both endearing and weird. It's Link, you guys. I swear he saved the world a lot before. Well, not this Link, apparently. 'Cause I think that is the most interesting thing with the story so far, is when they started teasing that idea of like, wait, they don't know who each other are? Like, is Zelda just playing dumb? And like, when you go to Link's town, that's not that far away, she seems confused by everything. Everyone seems to be confused by her. It's like, has she just been locked in this castle her entire life and had like no interaction with her entire kingdom? Or what is happening here?
I think it's just that classic, like Nintendo put out that Hyrule Historia, and then I forget who it was, but Miyamoto or someone also said like, yeah, but like we just kind of made that up. Like there was never actually supposed to. There's no like canonical thing, really. You guys just were begging for it, so I don't know. Here you go, I guess.
Oh, the timeline stuff,
right?
Yeah, and so I don't like. Every Link is different, right? Every Link is a completely different
Well, not
Link.
all. Some of them are the same, which they have. I mean, going from Link's Awakening
Most
to Link
Links
to the Past.
are different.
Most Links are different. All bugs are insects. Not all insects are bugs. And so it's interesting, and it's really playing with fire. And this is where we need people to write in about it. Like Jiren, Thickeroni with Cheese, wrote in about the idea about like, oh, the map is the same as Link to the Past and Link Between Worlds, but they don't know each other, so it has to take place before, but it doesn't really make sense. And then they say, unlike those games, this one has some unique features, such as the lack of the water control building in the Southern Marsh, suggesting it's either in the past or future of that specific version of Hyrule. So I think this is already, it's so close to that Link's Awakening, Link to the Past, Link Between Worlds timeline, but I don't think it squarely fits in there, so we just kind of have to let it go for this is
Watch
something
it be
new.
the start of some random one, like the Child Link one or what. Like, just makes no sense. But like, we just want to put it in the box of what it looks like or what the map is similar of. But a lot of the other, Ocarina of Time flows right into Majora's Mask, and
right,
that's like one of the only times where it's very obvious that's what's happening. And those two games have completely different locations and stuff like that. But the Link timeline stuff, I'm of the mindset like that's kind of cool that they tried, but I just view it as a new Link every time, and I try not to get too bogged down. Otherwise, it almost feels like trying to shove puzzle pieces in the wrong slot, and it ultimately feels dissatisfying.
Yeah, I guarantee us fans have thought more about this than Nintendo ever has, and I don't think they care.
Yeah, you don't need to care. Do you hear that, Zelda fans? You don't need to care.
It's right. It's it's like the George Lucas, like things rhyme over one iteration to the next. It's echoes.
It's like
echoes.
It's like poetry. It echoes. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Wow.
Joshua Caleb writes in and says, I'm actually liking how they've set up Link and Zelda in this game. Link isn't immediately established as the destined hero. I think this lets Zelda establish herself as her own character with her own motivations rather than just the hero rescue party. Yeah, that is true. It's like, oh, the weird guy in the green tunic. All right, I guess I'll wear his hood or whatever, but it's not a matter of like, we're doomed until we get Link. It's just a weird force that they don't quite understand, who's hell-bent on saving kids because he was kidnapped as a kid and sucked into the rift. The basics.
I'm weak that she puts the hood on and she's so mysterious now. She's like, oh, you don't even know me. Like, everyone's like, who is this young woman anyways?
Yeah.
You'd think that they'd know who she was, that the Zora domain's like 10 feet away from the castle.
Yeah.
How are they not crossing paths?
It's less than like the Superman Clark Kent thing. But yeah, like her old, like, employees in the castle are 3 feet away from her talking to her where they're like, wait a minute, could this be Zelda?
Well, and they all think that you're Link as soon as they see you, and then they're like, oh no, you're not. And it's like, well, okay, clearly you've realized it's not Link, and then you're looking at a face, and like you're just all of a sudden face blind that you can't tell that's the princess.
And this is why Nintendo is just like, look, stop thinking about it. Stop. I mean, to me, it almost comes across a little tongue in cheek, the fact that she's just wearing a hood and her own employees don't recognize her. It's just. I feel like it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's like, just don't question it. Like, just play the game. You're gonna enjoy the game. Don't worry about it.
She looks cool in the hood, right? Yeah, I guess. All right, then move on. DKMYAU writes in and says, "I love the way." See, this is the deepest dive. Thank you, DKMY. So I love the way the game gets right into it when you first boot it up. no logos, no menus, just right into a cutscene and then into gameplay. Great to see some of the cinematic learnings from newer games applied to a top-down Zelda. Yeah, that was surprising. It's like, oh, we are just right into this cutscene. We are fully ready to go. It's a cool, bold move. I like it. And I don't know if anybody else had this thought. It's so sad that it's like the first game where you're playing as Zelda, really. And the second it started and I was playing as Link, I was like, oh, I'm excited to get to play as Link. I don't know. Did anybody else have that feeling?
Yeah, it reminded me of the intro to Tears of the Kingdom, where you're really beefy Link at the end of Breath of the Wild, but then you lose your power, sort of thing, because you have what 24 hearts or something, and you're really good with your sword. You got your shield. You're running around. You're like whippy. It was almost mirroring that intro. I felt.
Yeah. It could be.
And you have the bow and arrows. I had the same thing where I started and I was like, this does feel really good. I wouldn't mind playing a Zelda like this.
Right. I assume the fact that it's weird to have to like have the dual tutorial in the beginning. Not that it was overly complex and stuff, but I'd assume that's going to be coming back later. Well, I guess it already kind of came back with, the sword fighter form and stuff where they're kind of tutorializing that stuff already.
Yeah. I don't know if I love the sword fighter form. I don't know if it's necessary, to be honest, because I end up not using it and just spamming out my little monsters to fight for me.
You're not alone, yeah.
It's one of those video game things where it's like as soon as you put a resource on it, I just never want to use it because I'm afraid when I actually need it, I'm not going to have it. And so I usually end up not using it.
That's a good point.
Fred DeNovo's with you saying, is anyone else neglecting to use the sword? I like it. As much as I like the echoes and kind of the creativity from that, sometimes I do feel like I'm just kind of like walking into an arena to fight and I'm like, what do I got in my pockets? What do I got in my pockets? Just kind of rummaging. So every once in a while it's like, let me just pop this and just hack you guys real quick. And especially like in boss fights and stuff, it's really nice to have that as an option, even if it is odd to be like, all right, okay, Zelda, you're nice and all, but let's get Link in here for just a second, please.
Anyone else have a problem with those water bugs? Those are like kryptonite to every enemy that I usually use. They're like, no, I'm just going to jump I'm going to jump across the entire screen and land on Zelda instead.
Yeah, I was very excited when I first saw him, like, the Tech Tick or whatever their name is. Like, I want to get that guy because I want to also just bind to them and then just get thrown around the map and stuff. Like, definitely those were surprisingly some of the hardest enemies in there. But
HDMI in the comments says you can hold them down with the grab ability.
Yeah.
And then your echoes attack him. I never even thought of that.
Yeah,
Smart.
there's Mantaguy writes in. Mantaguy writes in and says, hey, MinnMax, how many of you have used binding in combination with your echoes? For example, waiting for a flying enemy to swoop down to ground level and attack, dodging and binding with it to hold it in place, and then plopping down a sword moblin to kill it.
Yeah, I love how complicated you can make this for no reason at all. That's amazing, but I usually just hold an Octorok above my head or something if something's flying at me.
That's good. I haven't even been doing that, but like just the bind, I think I'm still getting used to. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, I forget that I have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Ascend in Tears of the Kingdom. You forget, and then you're like, oh yeah, obviously I can just ascend up this mountain. What am I doing?
Yeah, it's really weird to constantly forget the super powerful thing.
Yeah, there was one puzzle that I got stuck on when I think I can't remember what it was, but you went somewhere and there was a statue with a shield on it, and it was like,
yes,
well, I'm throwing stuff at it.
Me too.
I'm sending a ghost at it. Like, what am I supposed to do here? I almost had to look it up, and then I was like, oh, that's right. I have a grab ability that I haven't been using this entire time.
Yeah, I kept doing that thing.
I did have to look that one up, actually, the shield guide to get into I thought maybe I was missing a room, missing a key or something. So I did like a second lap all the way around the dungeon, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, right. And I think for some reason, because that's shortly after the grab mechanic is introduced to you.
Yeah.
And in my head, I guess I was like, this is for moving large objects. And I don't know why, because the first thing you move is a large object.
Yeah.
And so I didn't connect that you can bind to just like anything, almost anything in the game. And after that point, I think I got a little bit better at like looking and seeing, okay, is there something I can move in here, whether or not it's large? But I literally did have to look that one up because I was stumped.
Yeah, I was still forgetting about it. I think it's just because the echoes are just like a sea of potential and experimentation. And it's like, oh, also on this side, there's this powerful thing. But like for me, it was one where like the classic Zelda, like you have to light all the torches in this room with fire. And one of the torches was underwater. So like, okay, is the bomb fish gonna do that? Or maybe I can use the little fire guy and maybe the fire won't go out if I put it down there. And it's like, oh no, you just have to bind it and bring it up to the surface, you idiot. Okay. All right. Kelsey Sims writes in, relative of yours, Kelsey.
Yeah, it's actually the Kelsey is like we're all related if you have the same first name.
Oh, is that right?
We just do it backwards.
Get a lot of this, everybody. They say, did anyone else struggle with the precious treasure side quest, or am I just dumb? You need to bring a sea Zora something that can store their items in underwater. No echoes I tried fit the bill. A box was too plain. Pots have no lids. I figured I missed the echo needed and needed to circle back. I cleared 3 more dungeons and still couldn't solve it. It was driving me nuts. Then I was at the seaside village docks when I noticed a treasure chest in the water that I'd opened hours ago. The answer was never an echo. I needed to drag a treasure chest over there myself. I was too focused on what the creative solution was to realize the simple and obvious one. Yeah.
I didn't even solve that, but I had a similar like mess up where the side mission where the guy wants his mom's fish cooked. And so I echoed it, went over to him and made an echo of the fish in front of him. And he was like, smells pretty good, but not like my mom's. And I was like, what? And I thought I was just like not putting it down right or something, but he just wanted to bring that fish over, not echo it and create a second fish. And I was like, that was a little unclear. That's what the entire system is echoes, but I can't echo this one thing because this guy has a weird nose.
And it's trained you at that point. They're like, hey, if there's a little echo sparkle on it, like obviously grab that echo immediately. So that's the first instinct when you see that yummy fish sitting there.
Yeah.
Nick from Atlanta writes in and says, is anybody else weirded out by the implications of Zelda being able to summon food? There's a side quest to bring somebody a fish, but if you bring him an echo of the fish, he can tell you it's not the real thing. But moblins will eat the meat fine until it disappears. Do you think echo food has any nutritional value?
Do you think it's meat? Is she creating meat?
Could she feed the world? Could she teach a man to fish? What if you eat half the meat and then it gets desummoned? Are you suddenly lighter? Would your poop lose structural integrity?
Yeah, what if you're full and then you get rid of it while it's in your stomach when you're halfway through digestion? Would you like get really sick?
Yeah.
Probably.
I think it's kind of like the food in Hook, you know, where like it tastes all yummy and stuff, but I don't think they're pooping much in Hook, I guess, is the conclusion here.
The Hook food?
Well, you see in the film Hook, Haley, they have a big feast and Peter Pan, who's older and doesn't believe anymore, he says, there's no food here.
Williams.
And they say, use your imagination, Peter. And then the table, I'm getting choked up talking about this because I love Hook so much. And then he sees the full spread, and then they get in a huge food fight with the invisible food, and it's all just a bunch of like colorful slop and stuff like that. And it's the greatest film ever been. Hey, Skylar Timmons has a similar question saying,
Jen's crying, audio listeners.
You like Hook, right, Jeff?
Thinking about the poop and Hook.
Okay, never mind. Skylar Timmons, the critics didn't like it at the time because they talked a lot about the Lost Boys poop, but I think Steven Spielberg had a vision. So Skylar Timmons writes in and says, do you think the echoes are sentient or do they feel pain? I love being able to spam one creature after another until my enemy is defeated, but should I feel more remorse like I do in Pikmin?
No, they're like husks of people, I think, or husks of enemies. They're blank eyes.
Yeah, I think that's right. They should just have like doll's eyes. The eyes, if you zoom in enough, I think they should look completely different because I don't think we need to feel bad about them. They're like ghosts. They're wisps. They're
then
nothing.
They have the red eye thing
they're
for
echoes.
imposters, and would echoes have a different color eye? Then you get all confused. Muddled messaging on the eye color stuff.
Ryan has the killer question. Does Zelda's power to summon the echoes of enemies she's killed make her a necromancer? Yes, it does.
Yes,
it does.
No.
That's a good question. Yeah, why not?
She's not bringing it back to life. That's a completely different one. We just established they're not sentient.
Yeah, but it's more fun if we imagine she's she's like bringing their souls back to life or something.
Their spirit.
But if they have souls, then we need to feel bad about.
Time. There's only one corpse per dead thing, right?
I guess so.
That's a logical argument.
Brain Freeze says, I feel like in any other game, Zelda would be the villain. She's a cloaked witch concealing her identity who travels around creating sentient clones of those she kills and then forces them to spend their brief lives fighting for her. She can freeze you in place and completely control you. I predict she'll complete the heel turn and kidnap a princess by the game's end. How sweet would that be?
That'd be sick.
If she snaps and she just starts imprisoning princesses in like some tower. Oh my God. Honestly?
Well, she should imprison her dad.
Yeah. Yep.
He's trying to kill her. I mean, it's not even that much of a heel turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you play a game like this and you're like, oh, this is fun. It's like, try to figure out how to make a dungeon in this game that's fun.
Right.
It must be so hard because, okay, let's assume they have the water cube. Does that ruin this level? What if they have the trampoline? Does it ruin this level? You'd have to think of every single item. And also if they don't have it, what if they don't have XYZ? What at minimum do they need to have to get through this level?
That's what I'm still trying to understand with this game is like, how many of these are optional? And is it just doing a good job of making it seem like they're all optional, but some are actually necessary and they're kind of gated in little rooms? And so you're never going to get stuck, but it does feel like, oh, you could miss the trampoline pretty easily. You can miss a lot of these things pretty easily, but there's just going to be a slightly weirder way to get around it. I would love to see just that path of what do you need to get through this game? Probably not that much.
I imagine that's part of why it only gives you two options of where to go in the beginning, right? Like, rather than opening it up everywhere, it's like there must be some things we're getting in those two places first that you must need for later puzzles. That's my guess, at least.
It's a bomb fish or something.
Yeah. But I've already a couple of times felt like I felt like I have a really good arsenal of tools. And then they surprise me with a new thing that's useful in completely new ways. So, I have no idea what's going to come next. But I think that, I think the bombfish is probably the best example of that.
Yeah, I think so.
But can you miss the bombfish?
I think it's an impassable. There's like a brick wall or crumbly wall you need to break to get to the next area. And the only way to do that at that time is bombfish.
Yeah, I was confused about
I would think anything in one of the dungeons, like I bet all the dungeons are self-contained in terms of like, or at least these first two, since you can choose which one to go to first. Maybe the ones after that, they'll be like, okay, well, we know you have the bomb fish for sure. But I would think like the water one, they know you're going to have the water cube. And so they can work those kind of things into puzzles. But But they're probably not like, well, surely you got the wolf over in Hyrule Forest, so we're going to give you some kind of wolf-centric, puzzle here.
Hang on, do you guys have a wolf?
I don't have a wolf.
I don't have a wolf.
Oh, you guys got to go to Hyrule Forest.
What? I want that wolf.
Oh, I thought you were making that up.
Yeah, that was a random example.
Okay. Do you guys have Shark? Shark's
Spoilers.
cool.
Shark is my
The
main
shark
man.
was a game changer, too.
Yeah.
Do you have the plant that floats and then has spikes that stick out of it? And it just putters around in the air and destroys everything?
No, but a lot of people were writing in about that. I'd argue it's like the most common comment. The pea hat. Shoji Kodo wrote, I missed that completely. Where'd you get the pea hat? I want a pea hat.
It was in a little side area, and the only thing in the room is the pea hat. And then once you kill it, it's very much like, here's a really good thing for you. Kill it. And then I use that almost the entirety of the dungeon because it kills everything, but it can't go underwater. That's like its only downside. So that one area in the water temple where you have to hit all those eyeball things.
Yep.
If I didn't have the pea hat, I bet that would have been 10 times harder because I could just shoot up the pea hat and it flew around the room for me and just hit everyone.
Oh my God.
Barely
that's
do
awesome.
anything.
Those big rooms in the water temple were some of my favorite. Like there's that one and there's a room before that too, where you just enter it and it's just chaos. Like Octoroks firing at you, sharks in the water. Sorry, I'm thinking about Hook again. I'm getting choked up. Like I love it because it's like such a puzzly game. It's like Oracle of Ages or something in that arena, right? Of like we're gonna be a more puzzle focused game, and then suddenly there's just like here's an action room. Go. It's like oh my God. Okay, what am I trying to do? I need to get my shark out in the water just to try and combat this stuff. But the shark, because I got him. I assume there's only the one, but he was kind of like by the sunken or the wrecked pirate ship out in the lake.
That's where I got mine.
Yeah, and like, how do I take this guy out? So I kept just like making the spiny guys and just like dropping them on his head for so long. It's like, all right, now you're mine, buddy. Got it.
You need pea hat. Pea hat over and over, and it kills everything.
God, all right. Can I go back for P-Hat?
Yeah, he was just in a wall crevice somewhere near the first area.
God damn, P-Hat. It is.
I can't remember.
They are Pokemon. This is just collecting Pokemon. You know,
Go
Mecha
P-Hat.
Pig wrote in about that, how it's giving you Pokemon vibes. And yeah, it is like, I felt a lot like it's like Animorphs. You know, I'm just kind of like going around the world like, oh, I got to get that animal. I want that animal over there. It'd be cooler if Zelda turned into all these things, I guess. But Gabe CP writes in and says, the Echoes also managed to make fighting a tough enemy a reward unto itself. No need for a treasure chest. I'm walking out of here with a huge spinning plant monster. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true, because I feel like it is a problem with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom at a certain point. I'm like, why am I fighting these idiots? Like, I'm just going to dodge as much of these as possible. And so then have the answer.
$1 million and like, money doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right. It's like, okay, if you really want to get this new ability, you need to at least take down one of these things. And it makes it so much more rewarding to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is another one of my criticisms of this game that carries over from the last two of like, Nintendo has just completely lost a way to make treasure chests meaningful in Zelda games. It's like every time I open one, it's like 20 rupees in there or some kind of crafting element. And it's such a bummer to come from like having loved every Zelda game. And your brain has been trained to be like, when I open a treasure chest and I hear that sound, there's going to be like some awesome item that I'm going to use for the rest of the game. And it's going to open up all of these different things for me. And here it's another complete letdown of like, occasionally you might like get an equipment, like a piece of equipment or something. It's like, okay, that's cool. But otherwise it's just kind of these bummer, like little things that you would normally get from breaking a rock or something. But the plus side of that is like, well, I'm getting stuff from all the enemies that I kill and any other item that I see that I can turn into an echo. Like that feels like a sense of progression and like I'm gaining something from that. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to be starving for rupees a little bit later. Like I had enough to get the flippers, which I was very thankful about before going into that water dungeon.
Sold some smoothies to get that one, yeah.
Yeah, nice. But at the same time, yeah, I feel like every time I go into like a little side optional area and it's like, here's 50 rupees. It makes you really happy. Or whatever it says. I'm like, which is such a, I wrote down that
that phrasing as well, because it's like, what kind of capitalist pig you're telling me to be super
capitalist
happy
goblin,
about like,
please.
oh yeah,
you're
I'm
not
over the
happy
moon
about
because
money? Are you
I mean,
better
I
than
am,
all
but
of
you don't
us?
have to tell me that I'm going to be happy. And honestly, I'm not very happy when I get 50 rupees.
I'm not either.
But,
I'd rather get a new Echo, you know?
Even when the game yells at you and tells you how to feel.
Well,
and then there's like have you guys run into the acorn guy who's like, hey, get these, like, I'm going to scatter acorns and then you pick them up and you pay him 10 rupees. And then if you do it and you win, he gives you 20 rupees. And it's like, can you just not come up with good prizes anymore to these games? Like,
just give us a new skin for our P-Hat.
It is a weird kind of like that. And the Haley, I'm glad you said that you've been making smoothies, because I have not touched the crafting system at all in this game. It's like, we all have beds. Like, what do I need smoothie? Why am I crafting all these smoothies?
I didn't know that sleeping in the bed gave you health.
It's really slow.
Really?
Yeah. I've just been drinking smoothies.
But you know the like life hack for the sleeping in the bed is you lay down and after like 1 second it will heal, and then you stand back up and then you lay back down, because they give you that first heart really fast. And then it's like 4 seconds after that for the second. So you just have to keep going up and down.
That's how I sleep at night, actually. It's a life
faster.
hack.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Much like real life.
The time to make the smoothies is a bit of a hassle.
It is, yeah.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, we got, who is it? John Shelvok writes in and says, it might seem like a small thing, but I think the ability to make a bed echo and heal yourself anytime that you want is rad. I also dig the Crotula echo. The little spider is pretty handy in common situations. My final thought, though, is smoothie crafting is so far not as satisfying as making food in Tears of the Kingdom for multiple reasons, not least of which is the annoyance of having to pay for each smoothie. I hope we get a blender or something later in the game, but I mean, compared to like buying a potion, smoothies are absolutely the way to go. And I just like the idea of smoothies being a big thing in a Zelda game. I think it's silly and fun.
I do like that you unlock the recipe, and then once you have it once, if you look at the combo, it tells you what you already made. Like, that's fun to do, but I do not love just standing there giving him all my money as he turns around and does the animation for a few seconds and is like, you get a weird looking smoothie that's blurred for some reason. What is the implication? And then you just kind of have to do that over and over. Like, that's just for the angle that they're going with of let's make everything fun and satisfying. I was like, I feel like that could have been something else. Like, they had it right with Tears of the Kingdom where you literally just go, ugh, and then it dances and then you just get your food.
Yeah. By the way, I did like that business scrub guy. When he gives you 20 rupees early on when you meet him, then he goes, don't spend it all in one place unless it's here. Like, all right.
That was smart, yeah.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. Spencer Botine writes in. Says, everyone knows the best part of Zelda games are the freaks. Now we're talking Spencer. I'm talking Tingle, the Postman, Pen. I love seeing what weirdos are going to sprout up in a new Zelda entry, and lo and behold, Stamp Guy floats down from the sky to declare his obsession and forces us to help feed his addiction. Never stop giving us the freaks, Nintendo.
I love the little freaks, too.
His eyes are just unnatural, and he's got that big stamp on his head.
I like how he goes, woo! It just like mimes the stamp action every time you talk to him.
It was such a big build up to him floating down. I'm like, this is Tingle. We're in Tingletown, baby. He's like, oh no, new freak, everyone. Gather around. Look at this freak. Brian W. says, Stamp Guy, such a perfect little dork. I love the extra commentary when you get the stamp card. Quote, it was handmade by the Stamp Guy, and it looks like it. I guess it's up for interpretation, but I totally took it as a dig at this little stamp lover.
I like how bespoke the stamps are. Like the actual stamp he puts on, at least the first one, I only have one so far, is very intricately detailed. I don't know if you guys have ever seen how stamps get made, but you have to like individually carve out the wax. And you can tell it's not just like a heart stamp. It's like next one, it's this intricate textured stamp drawing of a bunch of guys like leaning over each other's shoulder that looks like it was actually made by someone at Nintendo and then they just turned it into an image maybe.
So bizarre. Derek writes in and says, this is going to be someone's first Zelda game. As I was fighting as Link at the beginning, I found myself wondering how a person with no understanding of Zelda games would find that fight with Ganon. Yeah. I guess that'd be kind of interesting. Like, who's this weird pig? What is this? I got to hit the thing back and forth with him. But I think that's kind of the cool thing of starting out like that.
I think that's going to be the new question, and not what is your favorite Zelda, but what was your first one? Because I'm more interested by that now than what's your favorite. It tells me more about you. Was
your first Ocarina?
No, my first was Link's Awakening, but it was like the first game I even feel like I remember playing on a Game Boy.
Yeah.
Like I could barely I just walked in a circle on the beach and hit things. Like I barely did anything.
I was in that exact same camp with Link's Awakening. It was like, I'm so happy just to be cutting down like bushes and grass. This sounds like this is the greatest game ever.
I thought that was the
to
game.
Me. Yeah.
I didn't know there was puzzles. And
yep.
stuff.
And then eventually my friend's like, there's like a Pegasus boots and all this stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? There are items later in this game. Like I really thought it was just a grass cutting simulator. Jeff, I assume it was Zelda 1 for you?
It was Link to the Past.
Oh, of course.
Good first one.
I probably like played a little of the original Zelda on other people's NESs, but we didn't have an NES.
All right, so. Kelsey, the greatest mystery. The first one, I'm going to go Majora's.
It was Ocarina of Time, but I borrowed it from my neighbor, and so I never played it all the way through. So I don't know if that counts. First one I beat was Wind Waker.
Hey, that counts.
I did not beat Link's Awakening for sure. Never beat that.
Yeah, I was at Game Informer before I beat Link's Awakening. But Poofy Doo writes in and says, escaping as Zelda in the intro gave me Ocarina of Time vibes. Never would I have thought that playing Ocarina of Time that I would be playing as Zelda one day trying to escape the very castle I was breaking into as Link. Absolutely. Krauser writes in and says, my favorite moment of the game, the early game so far specifically, was Impa absolutely annihilating those guards in her old age by zipping through them like a true Sheikah knight.
I love Impa. I love how they depict Impa in all the games. They have so much fun with her. I can tell that the devs like Impa a lot. They get silly with her.
Yeah.
And I love that she was also just unquestionably like, nope, you didn't do it. I know 3 people said they watched you make the rifts, but no, not my Zelda.
Right.
When she first sees you and she's like, I'm going to go run you a bath. I was like, oh, I love you. Like, I needed to hear that. I was like, that's so nice. I love her.
Graham Gilmore writes in and says, after the first dungeon, Left mentions how she can see Tri, but Impa can't. I'm calling it Impa is some sort of imposter. I think it's just something like if you've had contact with the rifts, you can see.
Yeah, it's just if you've been in the rift.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So
They say that,
yeah,
Ben?
yeah. So clearly,
say that.
Impa is not an imposter, and you
Thanks.
should take it back.
Impa's a queen.
Impa's a queen. Oh, speaking of Impa's sick moves and grass cutting, before I forget, I love Zelda's quick twirl to cut the
Yeah.
grass in there. That's so nice, especially like doing that in the water. I'm still trying to do the math. I'm like, is it faster to constantly be twirling through the water? Am I using more oxygen to twirl through the water? I don't think so.
Wait, real quick before we get a missed joke opportunity.
Yeah.
Imposter.
Oh.
Holy cow. Everyone, batten
Saved.
down the hatches at home. Try to withstand this comedy. I dare you. Matt Woksh writes in and says, hey, Zelda. Hello.
Hi.
It would have been real cool if you could make an echo of that axe I kept walking by in the starting area. You can't tell Zelda what to make an echo of and what she can't make an echo of.
And besides, you make an echo of that dark nut guy who's like the full armor with
Yeah.
a giant. That's his name, pal. I didn't name
I
him.
didn't smirk.
Complain to them. But he's got the giant axe, and then it's like you summon him, and he's like your personal Michael Myers that just slowly like tracks down and murders everybody for you.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, he is.
I like
sweet.
how many times I've gotten a new enemy echo and then been like, this is the one, this is the strongest guy. And then like 20 minutes later, there's an even better one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are encountering this problem, but I wish they had a favorite system. I'm really bummed that they don't, that you can't just star your favorite ones. But so I'm using most used, but then when I get a really good guy, I have to spam him a bunch so that he moves up the roster to the left. But then now it's getting to a point where I've used them so much when I get, like, I got MacLean level 2 and he's way better. He's got a shield and a sword and he literally blocks everything incoming. I'm like, oh, he needs to be at least number 4 slot. So I was just standing there going, spam, 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 like using him a bunch of times so he'd go left a bunch. But the number's getting higher and higher the more I play because I'm using all the other things a bunch of times. It's just, I wish I could just star one.
Yeah. It is like, it's so, yeah, what we got? Justin P. wrote in talking about how it's pretty clunky. It says, I think having a menu just for monster echoes using left on the D-pad, object echoes on the right on the D-pad, and automatons on down would help echoes be a lot more manageable. That is, I assume there's a reason they're not doing to that, but it is like,
I probably find that more difficult just for muscle memory purposes. I don't know. I've been surprised at how much I don't hate it, given that it is like, it's getting to be a lot to scroll through, but it's pretty easy to scroll through it. So I don't know. I'm not getting that flustered yet, but maybe it'll get worse as the game goes on.
yeah.
I was nervous when I saw it in the trailer, when I saw that was the UI they were using, because I don't like using that UI in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Like when you need to make a eye-seeking arrow, and you're just like, like going through 1,000 of them to find the eyeball, and it just, but it works better here because it's not like you're ever combining two things, you're just chucking out one thing, so it is more streamlined. But I'm not gonna lie, that's probably my least favorite UI thing Nintendo's done in recent memory. I just don't like pausing the action to like, let's see, I'll flip through the folder. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It just feels like the antithesis of momentum and fun.
Yeah, I do think it is nice. Like I'm just going by most used as well. And to have like whatever new thing I have is all the way on the right. And so you can just like wrap around and grab it real quick and kind of drag it forward in the queue if you want to. And it does kind of feel like you're, you know, I'm a bit of a fashionista these days. And so it does feel like you're kind of like digging through the closet of just like, oh, if you get into that doldrums of like the far right side of like, what is over here that I haven't used? Oh, the weird roly guy. I should use you more. We used to hang out. Come on back, buddy.
Yeah, maybe I should just use recently used, but I like that most used is like my heavy hitter guy. It feels more satisfying, like I'm curating it than just what did I happen to use, because my neurotic brain will go every time I finish doing something, I'll go reset it and be like, you and water block and bed and desk and then it'll be all clean again. I just want them. I don't know. I crave accurate sorting at all times in games, even though it's not warranted in a situation like this.
Yeah. Here's a diabolical idea. Graham Gilmore says, I love the echoes and the bind systems. My favorite part of the ecosystem is forgetting certain ones. Then when I go into the collection, I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally use this. One thing I kind of wish they added is a cooldown with certain echoes, because you can kind of just spam certain monster echoes until the enemies are defeated. I hear you, Graham.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I feel like if they had a cooldown, that would be like weapon durability. I feel like people would lose their minds about it.
I
And
don't think I'd like the cooldown at all.
No.
Yeah.
It's that kind of falls into my complaint of like the sword, where it's like, if I want to use the sword, just let me use the sword. I'm glad that they just let you use the things that you want to use when you want to use them, and don't try and restrict you more or force you to play it the way that they want you to play it for some reason.
I mean, I feel like 5 years ago, if this game was designed, it would have like the magic meter. And every echo used drops down the magic meter. It's like, no, just F it. We don't need lives in Mario anymore. We don't need meters on the screen. Like, just
The
go
running
nuts.
juice in Skyward Sword.
Right.
Oh my God, that makes me want to die.
Yep.
I hated that. And then they build this Sky Town as like the perfect distance with all the little juice ups so that you can run through the whole town and not need to stop. But then you have to hit every juice on the way. It's like, just let me run. Why are we doing this? Why are you setting this up when you want me to run from here to there? Just let me run.
Yeah.
I can't stand those kind of limitations.
Richard Kirk says, it feels like some of the echoes are made to be the only answer to a problem. Out of the 30 or however many I've collected, maybe 8 of them have needed to be used. I get that not everything can be made to be upper tier in terms of quality, but it does feel like the gameplay relying on them gets slowed down when I'm sorting through what I've got. This leads to it feeling like time wasted when most of the echoes likely won't ever be the answer to a problem. Why not have it though? I get what you're saying, but if you sort it the right way, then, it'd be kind of fun to go through and find those. Oh, like the pots. Like, I haven't used the pots since the start of the game, really.
Who's using the pot, really?
I think some people
Did you
are
know
using
you
the
can
pot.
jump
I
into
actually-
the pot?
This is
know
what
that.
people are raving about.
my God.
You can do what?
You can jump into the pot. You can hide in it and then like hop around while hiding in the pot.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very important. James Litton says, kudos to the treehouse. It's a very funny bit having the description for pots read, clearly made with love and great effort. Yep, and they'll never be destroyed. Paddington.
When I was walking, like one of the weird things that I started doing when you would go into people's houses and you pick up their pot and then you destroy it, they get all freaked out. And if you throw it at them, they also get thrown out. So I think like the one time I actually spawned a pot was I went into someone's house and they didn't have a pot. So I was like, well, f it. And I just spawned a pot and then I threw it at them and continued my streak. I guess I am
Gave
playing
them an
Zelda as a
animal.
bad person.
Took it away.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
I thought, for some reason, I thought you were going to be doing something nice here. And you're like, I saw they didn't have a pot, so I needed to make sure they had
I
a
hit
pot.
him with it and then I just left.
It is fun how you can just terrorize all these
Good thing
NPCs.
princesses don't get elected, or you'd be ruining their chances at the next.
No, it's fun just to go in a house and just spawn a bunch of freaky monsters and run outside. Like, I love, like, it's not the most expressive game in terms of the animations and stuff, but like that is fun. The fact that they react to you kind of destroying their house by putting a bunch of monsters in there.
A little bit Untitled Goose Game, Just a little bit of that,
you gotta
that
have
fun chaos that you can enact on people.
Yeah. What I know we've touched on it a couple times, but like, does anybody else have any go-to attack guys? Like my favorite in the beginning were the Keese, the bats. Like, I think that was so fun. Just like, all right, unleash the Keese army. I'm going to sit back here and just bats are swarming. And they would get killed a lot, but you could make 3 of them early on. And so now we can make 4 or 5. So just pumping them all out there is satisfying. And then once I got those crows, I was like, oh, this is the coolest. Just to have an army of
annoying.
attack crows. I love
You're talking
watching
about like the toucan looking.
No,
bird?
not
Like
Gwei.
pink?
That Gwei piece of crap can burn in hell. I hate.
Oh, you don't like Gwei? I use Gwei all the time.
I'm scared of Gwei's power. I saw Gwei and I was terrified of him, and he just has the ugliest kind of polygonal pink, stupid looking bird with stupid looking retro eyes.
These are fighting words, Ben.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very
He's
down.
strong though.
I'm down on Gwei.
You just got to take down one and then.
He's the atomic option I see as like, if I'm in a dire situation and I need to unleash the beast, but I'm scared. You don't know when Gwei is going to, become untethered to reality and start attacking you as the princess. Gwei can't be trusted.
Well, the one thing I did want to say on that is it's great that the enemies don't hurt you.
Oh, isn't it great?
Even like the bomb fish, if you're
Yeah.
next to the bomb fish when he explodes, still no damage. It's
I
great.
like that they did that.
Also, I'm confused. Sometimes the bomb needs to be detonated with a little twirl, and sometimes it
I
doesn't.
don't get that. Oh, twirling does it. Because sometimes
Yeah.
I send him out and he's like on site and he goes and does exactly what I want. And sometimes I chuck him out and he just sits there.
They're supposed to touch something, but it seems what what constitutes touching something is a little weird. Sometimes I have to put him out and then I use the grab power on him and then like kind of walk him into an enemy. Also because they sometimes flop, they'll like start flopping away from the enemy that you put him out next to. I'll put him out there and then grab him and then just kind of walk him towards the person until he explodes.
That's good.
But he's a go-to for me as well. Yeah.
I would like to do that.
When two bombfish are fighting, they both turn and start kissing, and then they explode together, and it's really romantic.
It is.
It's modern day Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, there's a place where you get in and there's like 5 bombfish, and it's like what you're talking about earlier. Like sometimes you just enter a room and it's like the chaos room, and it's really exciting. And and you just send out a bunch of bombfish and they all just find their little bombfish couple and they kiss and then they explode.
And then they kiss.
There's something, I don't know, it's just because I like Link's Awakening and I love the 2D sections in Link's Awakening and I love the 2D sections in this, but like something about seeing fish in that 2D section just makes me happy because it makes me think of Link's Awakening and the weird fish that like does the dance and his eyes go around and stuff in that game. And so I'm excited every time I'm in a freaky swimmy area, even if it's the weird version where the lights are all out and you have to scramble to get the oxygen as you're moving through this. I wasn't expecting to feel like Sonic drowning vibes in Zelda here.
It's so smart to have swimming be 2D because swimming is so much better in 2D.
Yep.
Swimming in 3D is never fun in games like ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Mighty Ethan writes in and says, is it just me or are the enemies you summon way dumber than the enemies in the world? I feel like I can summon 2 sword bokoblins to fight a single other sword bokoblin and it'll kill both of them. What gives?
That feels like what it should be, though, because they're echoes. You're not like creating real life as we keep
They don't have a wife at home to want to live to go back to.
That's what it is.
They should just sort of be like dumb husks you're controlling. And, you can target things and point them at stuff and make them a little bit smarter. But I think the fact that you can spam them infinitely is like, yeah, they should be kind of dumb because they are just your dumb little minions that you can keep spamming.
It does depend on like what you are matching up against what and like the timing of when your character sees it. Like there have definitely been some where it's like, oh, well, I put this out and by the time it sees the thing that already sees it, like, of course, an Octorok is going to hit it before it can target it and hit it back. So you sometimes just have to figure out a better combo than sending the same thing up against each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dandaran wrote in saying, shortly after encountering your first spear moblins, you encounter a small camp with a monster chest for you to open. I noticed one of the moblins chowing down on a chunk of meat laying on the ground, and I thought, perfect. I'm going to send my moblin echo to kick some butt. Then my moblin echo went straight for the meat and started chowing down alongside the enemy. I laughed out loud and admired how much the devs were teaching me in that moment. I wonder if the systems are going to continue to surprise me and inspire as the game continues on here.
Yeah, I want more silly things like that. I haven't encountered too many, but just like, what if trampoline and this? And it's a very bespoke, unique thing that happens. It would be fun to find more of those sort of interactions.
Yeah.
I think even just at the beginning of the game, when the solution to the puzzle of getting out of the castle undetected is just put one box right in front of the other and just keep walking above all of the guards' heads while they're clearly they know something's wrong. They're like, these boxes just keep appearing in front of me and I'm really mad, but they just never look up.
Yeah.
And see that Zelda's on top of the boxes.
That's great. That's a great way to do it.
I think that the art style just helps so much when it's just because you just get to laugh if people are dumb. Whereas if this was a gritty style, if this was a Twilight Princess art style, you'd be like, oh, this AI is so stupid. But now it's like, look at this little doll. He doesn't know where to look.
Yeah, I think the art style really gives it kind of what Jeff was saying at the very start. It's just like a cute little thing you're holding in your hands. And you're like, goo, 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 all you little idiots. And so even the big fish that shows up, you're like, that's just a little fish. You guys are so scared, aren't you? It lets it be
Zelda game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for Gwei, who has terrifying eyes
I
from...
haven't encountered Gwei. What is
You're
wrong
lucky.
with Gwei?
Haley, thank your maker right now that you've never had to look Gwei in the eyes and seen his horror.
Gwei? How do you spell Gwei?
I don't want to say his name out loud anymore because we're going to summon him.
Say it 3 times.
Like Beetlejuice.
Yeah, please don't.
Oh,
it's like Guai or
Gwei's
AY.
in a bunch of different Zeldas.
Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He's great.
I didn't know he was a past monstrosity. I thought he was an original creation. Someone just had a fever dream and designed him as they're inspired by demons.
They're always little bastards.
Ugh.
Those Gweis, yeah.
Do you like that freak, Kelsey? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like that freak. Yeah.
Goddamn. James W. writes, on the road to the first dungeon, you meet a guy who lost his wife in the rift that separates this southern village from the prairie. He shouts into the rift, "Wife, can you hear me?" Is his wife's name Wife? Asked James W.
Sometimes I call my boyfriend.
It happens a lot, yeah.
Boyfriend?
Yeah, you guys don't do that?
That's like how I called my pretend boyfriend when I was a kid, playing make-believe. Like, come on, boyfriend. Let's get
it's not like the only thing I refer to him as, but it's to change it up,
Yeah, it's fun.
That's fun.
It's a cute nickname.
Would you yell it if he was falling down a waterfall or another moment of peril? Let's
test that theory. I don't know.
We were just next to a waterfall, Kelsey, in Portland.
Oh,
that was your chance.
Point. You could have chucked him into the waterfall and seen what I yelled.
And then I would have yelled boyfriend. It's confusing. Sean Mills writes in and says, does it feel, look forward to our Portland travelogue, everybody, coming up soon. Sean Mills says, does it feel like Nintendo is running out of names for the NPCs in the world? The advisors to the right and left of the king are named right and left, and the name of the first town to the south is Southern Town. Well, yeah.
I see. This is, if I'm supposed to be taking this game seriously, then I'm very confused about what it's trying to be. I'm choosing to believe that this is a very self-aware thing, and they're
Yes.
and like Jeff said, this is, this is just this cute thing full of idiots, and so everything's named stupid too, and it's great. Like, it's very charming and fun that way.
God, I wish that modern equivalent of Iwata asks kind of those Nintendo Q&As. I hope that was like their opening line is, well, you see, the thing is, we made a cute thing full of idiots. Buy Echoes of Wisdom, $60.
Be immediately on board.
Yeah. Let's see. We Go Giant says, I think this is a first for the series. Falling in bottomless pits deals no damage. You'll void out and respawn, but I think every other Zelda game, you lose a heart in the process. Yeah, wonder why that is for this time around.
It encourages you to drop down in so many holes that look like in past Zelda games would be, oh, I ain't touching that. Like, I remember playing the Link's Awakening remake, and I was almost having problems because there were some holes you were supposed to jump in order to progress, and some that were like, you're dead. And the game wasn't very good at differentiating. And now they're just moving forward to, if it's a giant hole, you can go in it. Don't worry about it. Just try it at least.
Yeah. Yep. Paddington's talking about that first dungeon area, saying it's just too perfect that the first mini boss is having to smash Link with pots. It's karma, baby. I didn't even think about that, but it is funny that is
so good.
What you're doing. Yeah.
I just kept
P guy or whatever the plant's name was.
I just kept summoning stuff behind him because he had a really, really short line of sight. So he just if you just get behind him and summon any enemy, he's like, oh. He just takes damage a couple of times before he turns around and is like, I'll get you this time.
It does. I mean, it goes back to that classic feeling of kind of modern Zelda, the feeling like you're breaking it. Like every time I summon the Dark Nut, I'm like, good luck, Link. Let's see you go up against the Dark Nut, buddy. It's just so satisfying every time I pop that guy out there.
Yeah, I remember we had a similar conversation in the Tears of the Kingdom Deepest Dive. It's like the motorcycle you can make. It's like once you find the only thing you can do is the game boring.
Right.
It's like, I don't think so. As long as you feel like you came up with that shortcut, then it's like, hey, woo, I am amazing. Yeah. It kind of erases those feelings of, well, now this is boring. What's the point?
Gavin C. writes in and says, yeah, shout out to P-Hat for soloing the first boss while I ran around like a headless cuckoo. Yeah. Max A says, I love how expressive the combat in this game can make you feel. I knew what the game wanted me to do for the first dungeon boss with using the Link install to slash at the weak point, but I wanted to challenge myself to beat it just using echoes. Cue a very long but fun fight of repeatedly climbing the hands of the boss and summoning pots and stones to knock out the weak point before getting a Dark Nut to do my big damage. I love that I could not pull out a sword at all and figure out my own right idea for the fight.
I didn't even know you could climb his arms. I definitely just sent out probably 100 bats when it was the weak point was on his shoulder.
Yeah.
It took a whole lot of kisses to get that weak point on the shoulder, but it worked.
Kisses? I thought that was for the bugfish.
I was just grabbing the weak spots with your grab ability.
Yep, yanking him out of his skull.
Pulling him out. Yeah,
that's what I did too.
Hello, Andre says...
I feel so stupid talking about this game with you guys sometimes. I'm like...
That is like just constantly forgetting that you have another ability other than just summoning.
I didn't know you could
things.
sleep in a bed, Kelsey. That is human life 101. So
That was pretty bad. Hello Andre says, why does Link's cloak smell like a musty dresser? If anything, it should smell like BO. He's doing a bunch of front flips. And in Luberry's diary, it mentions that Link lost his voice after entering the rift. Luberry also later mentioned that he has made all of Link's equipment, including his hood. In his basement, you can see the bomb and arrows that Link used in the beginning. That is a cool little
sewer.
detail.
He's a little crafty guy.
He has a basement. Maybe his basement is musty and he must have made the cloak. So it just still smells like the musty basement.
Right. Link's BO can't quite power through it. Link's still young enough where BO isn't really a big factor for
I feel
him.
like Link doesn't have BO. That's my headcanon at least.
He's also like hairless in my head. So
Right. Is there a connection
He
He
there?
swims a
Puberty.
lot.
Yeah. Jeffem, do you think you'd have less BO if you shaved your armpits?
No.
Hello, Andre. So that's a great point. So Impa's older brother, Luberry, is this MFer's name.
Blueberry.
Yeah, quirky.
I wonder who their mom loved more.
He's a delight. Love to see the real lore being expanded for Impa here. Okay, this is inappropriate. Zora Lover 69 writes in saying, I really like the Zora designs in this game. I can tell.
much.
They say the River Zora were a strange mix between really ugly and really cute. I'm glad the Sea Zora weren't distractingly naked like they were in Breath of the Wild. We weren't distracted by that Zora
What with a
Lover.
name like that? What do you mean? I feel like you should be.
You're
pissed.
glad?
You're happy they're not naked?
Yeah, come on. Fix it. Yeah, it is funky to have the two types of Zora. It's like the Sonic Generations thing, like meeting the older version and the new version. And I believe in Oracle of Ages, correct me if I'm wrong, comments, but I think they also had the two versions of the Zora in that. But it just made the new Zora breed looks
Or maybe
so much
they
cooler.
just had the River Zoras in that one.
Is that right? Okay.
Maybe. But I remember Kyle, the Zelda head, knows every lore piece. I remember when
Zelda
we
Lover
first watched the
69,
trailer.
please. He prefers that title.
Zelda Lover 69,
That was
or
his
Kyle
comment.
Hilliard. I remember he was like, "Oh, dope! They have the river and ocean together." And the way he said that made it seem like it was a fresh new idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm reading into that.
Okay. Yeah, Tokyo Game Life says, upgrading the River Zora from enemy to friendly tribe is such a fun idea. They're very distinct from the Sea Zora, which also really look nice in this art style. Since some of you live in Minnesota, can you give us some insight on the Lake Zora that will be in the next game, Jeffem?
No.
And it's that type of wham bam comedy you can expect here from MinnMax.
Yeah, don't set me up for some kind of Lake Zora pun. I couldn't get the Beatles earlier. What are you doing to me?
Yeah, we're trying to come up with Zelda Beatles puns. Sound off in the comments, please.
I mean, they already have the iconic lake. They have like Hylia
That's the
in
thing.
every
Why-
single game. Like,
Yeah.
hello.
Is it
make
all
the lake
Salt
Zora.
Lake? How are they Sea Zora, but then they're just swimming through the Salt Lake? I'd like to see them choke with their little gills when they try and swim around it in the lake.
I want to see them.
I'm not saying I want to see. I'm just
choke.
saying lore-wise, I think it'd be interesting if they
It'd be
couldn't
really
breathe.
interesting if all the Zelda or the Zora died. Ben Hanson.
If they had to like just keep their head out of the water. Otherwise, the Zora lore makes no sense. Come on.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tess says, does anyone else love how the conflict between the Zora is just a musical dispute? I was worried when the trailer showed River and Sea Zora fighting that the game would make the species hate each other innately. I always dislike when fantasy stories have those kinds of conflicts. It felt very refreshing. It made talking to the Zora much more fun because you saw them react to this abnormal situation that isn't really being treated as a big deal.
Again,
Yeah, I'm
just
glad they
deeply
didn't go
unserious.
fish prejudice route.
Yeah. just deeply unserious game, and I absolutely love it for that. Like, yeah, the big conflict you have to solve while you're actively like, guys, there's this rift, like we really need to close it, and it's like, no, we got to settle this musical dispute first.
Right.
Okay.
And it also like has a little love letter, I feel like, to Link's Awakening with the music. But I guess, I mean, so much of Zelda's about music that it makes sense. But Flamil says, I really appreciate Nintendo showing the power of music to calm trauma. Specifically after clearing out the Ocean Zora rift and the little kid is so shaken he can't move to escape the cave. Playing music to calm down and drawing attention to it was a wonderful way to teach the audience real-life coping mechanisms.
Yeah,
All right,
that was
I can
nice.
dig it. That is nice. Yeah, I did like how Jabu was kind of terrorizing the villages. Like the kids were so freaked out by
Do you
like.
just want every Zora
I think
to
it's.
die?
I just honestly, if I may, I just want some interesting story beats and story moments. Like,
You have fish prejudice.
I do have a little
That's
fish
what we're
prejudice.
learning.
I mean,
You said you don't like eating fish.
Oh,
Is this
yeah.
like are you
true.
just really
It
anti-fish
continues.
in general? Like
I
you
was
just
if I was
man.
anti-fish, I would have an only fish diet. I'd be like super pescatarian.
Only fish?
No, I think you hate them so much you want them to die and then not even use them. Like not
Yeah,
even
just rot.
Yeah.
hunting for sport.
Sick, man.
I'll leave you to your sick fan theories about how I treat fish in my own time. No, but I think I'm enjoying this game so far. I do think maybe my biggest beef is just kind of like, you go there, you get the setup of like, these Zora tribes are warring. Got it. Then I feel like they tell you that same thing about 14 different times, and I feel like every piece of dialogue, nothing interesting was happening. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
they play some music, that's great, but I'm a little worried about that. So when something kind of interesting is happening, like our little town has been terrorized by Jabu and this kid is scared, I'm like, there's a spark of kind of an interesting thing happening here, instead of just, yeah, the town, we don't like the other tribe, but now we do. The end, you know?
Yeah, like the identical combos you can have with each of their side people that you talk to. It's like the squabble question mark or
Right.
your leader question mark.
Yes,
It's like,
exactly.
come on, you guys. Like, you make this game look so pretty and do all this other stuff, and you can't change the two little words like that kind of stuff really takes me out and makes me go, I wish these characters had a script scrap of personality too.
Yeah.
Why can't they all be
There was-
Stampman freaks?
Come on, Statement
Yeah.
Brothers.
Yeah.
There was a moment too where you were talking to your little Try floating guy, and I think it was after a fight, and he was just like, there was just a total line of total throwaway dialogue. It was like, oh yeah, by the way, because of that big monster, like my guys couldn't fix the rift, but now we can fix the rift, and it's like more of that classic like Nintendo. We need a line of dialogue here, and we just don't care what it is. Like,
Well, I think Treehouse is wildly talented, wildly funny. I think it's just they probably have just a lot of dialogue slots to fill and not a lot of meat to shove in there. You know, I wish the dialogue could
yeah,
be
so like I said, so
I don't know,
any
but-
just random see you tried to turn it into a compliment
I did.
of like how talented they
You're
are,
right.
and then you said the exact same thing.
if you play like a Mario and Luigi game or a Paper Mario game, like obviously they're incredibly talented. I just think they're being
Yeah, so
served.
do that here too.
That'd be
Can we
nice.
talk about Try though? Try is,
yeah.
I think, maybe the cutest thing in any Zelda game ever. Is that? Am I
Really?
alone on this mountain?
Did we see the same try?
I
He's
sometimes
the
feel like I
floating
can't
ball.
figure out what he looks like. Like, what are his eyes?
I'm interested. I assumed Try
adorable.
was a woman. Maybe I'm just always used to the idea of
Huh.
like the assistant in a Zelda being a woman. But
Okay.
Dylan
We're
ate.
just Alexis
Well,
to you,
Zelda's a
or what the
girl
hell
this
is
time.
Wow.
So
Okay, this is problematic. Dylan ate.
Zelda's a girl this time is what I just said. No, I think you know what I mean.
So Dylan Atritson, though, they're with you, I think. They say reactions to the voice and design of Try. The sound Try makes sounds exactly like a weird toy wand thing I had as a child that makes a wee yoop sound when you turn it upside down. I'm guessing y'all believe that Try will go down as the most iconic sidekick in video game history. I thought it was just notable that we're like an hour and a half in and we hadn't really talked about Try. Because Try just feels like a zero to me. But Kelsey, you're in
Wow.
love, apparently.
No, I mean,
serious.
I've never. Has there been a Zelda sidekick, or I guess a Link sidekick, that's like not at least a little annoying before Try? Try's just
Midna's
so
iconic.
cute.
She's like the
That's true.
only one I
Midna's
kinda like,
pretty
yeah.
good.
Okay.
There's
There's some
like,
personality, yeah.
Try is not annoying, and maybe it's just because he's got such a cute little face. I don't really care what's coming out of his mouth. I'm just very excited to see that cute little face. And his friends' cute little faces. They're just like two little dots in a line, but it's adorable.
I think the lines in hell a little bit for Zelda's sidekick, like after Fee and Navi and like
Yes.
it's
Fee
not
is
a
like,
high bar to
ugh.
clear.
It's not.
I
As
will
long
give
as
you
they're
that.
competent and like kind of like tweet tweet and they're kind of like doing that sort of thing, sort of cute, and then they're just helpful. It's 90% of the way there. If they happen to have a personality also, then they seem like a god, like Midna. But they rarely do that with Link sidekicks.
Yeah, I guess it is, mission accomplished for Try not being annoying. And I do think it's cool to have like the design extend for the tail for like how many little summons
That's
you got.
smart.
I
It's
think
giving
that's,
Journey. It really
Oh,
reminded me of
sure.
Journey, the
Yeah.
Journey scarf.
but just for, where Kelsey's coming from, full disclosure, just because I spent a lot of time with Kelsey recently in Portland, Apparently, she did see a picture of a beluga whale recently and started crying. So she loves a
I
good,
did.
simple face.
I will
so
share
nice.
this. I will share this beluga. It might be a dolphin. I'm not 100% sure, but it is.
That's so cute. I love that.
So just like a simple
He's
two
really
dots
special.
and a simple horizontal mouth line, like that's Kelsey's way to connect. That's why you like birds so much, because their beaks are just like horizontal lines, like triads.
I mean, kind of. They got two little stupid eyes on the side of their head, and then it's just a line. Yeah,
That's
it's
kind of like
great.
horses too. Two stupid eyes on either side in a line.
Christopher Reardon writes in and says, swimming around with a chomp fin echo in Jabul Waters is really fun, relaxing, and satisfying. My shark friend easily dispatched most aquatic enemies, and once they were gone, he was actually really chill. If Zelda swims over Chompfin, she jumps over him like she's in a SeaWorld show. One downside is the Zora will not talk to Zelda when her Chompfin is nearby because it's too scary. That's excellent. I didn't mess with that, but that's so cool.
I also like that you can just swim without drowning in this game.
Well, yeah.
Oh well.
I mean,
Not underwater. I mean, she's not, she doesn't have gills, but at least you can just swim across a lake without drowning halfway across.
Yeah, no, it is nice.
Fair.
Did anybody get the little fish in the lake? Can you get those?
Just like the ones that are almost just background fish.
Yeah, I got like the
No, you
tangler
can't
or whatever.
copy
But,
those, I think.
okay, gotcha. Is anyone using the tangler? That kind of like fish with the dangle thing? I think
When you
that's
got
what
the
it's called.
chomper, why would you ever?
That was it. And I got like
fish?
level 2 tangler. And I'm like, you could say level 99, level 69 tangler. I still don't think I would use that thing in a million
I'd
years.
maybe do a double take, but I still wouldn't use it.
Nick W says, did anyone else get Star Wars vibes from the music in the water section? Something about how the strings sounded when swimming underwater had me thinking about the twin sons of Tatooine. Absolutely. It's we need Ross, the Star Wars Guide Fund to correct us here, but I think in one of the water dungeon areas, the music, I think it sounds just kind of like when they're going through like the canyon in A New Hope and stuff on Tatooine, like there's just certain notes that are very John Williams-y from that score. Did anyone else though in the water town to the north, the one that, what was his name? What was that big fella's name? Drad. In his village, the song sounded like the intro theme to one of Jeffem's favorite shows, Crank Yankers, back on Comedy Central. It sounded like the intro.
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
It sounded like the intro. Correct me if I'm wrong, everybody. La Fuedo writes in and says, I love that they straight up called the Deku scrub who sells you smoothies business scrub, because it sounds so hilariously condescending. Although a trip to the Zelda wiki suggests that this is actually a continuation of the naming convention of the Deku scrubs who sold you things not going to have time in Majora's Mask. Either way, I always loved the enthusiastic, plucky upstart merchant trope. I'm playing on hero mode, so managing a steady supply of smoothies is important. So I was very happy when I finally found him in the Jabul Waters. Business scrubs got my back. Hell yeah, he's got
Hero
you.
mode.
It is
Okay.
Deku scrub
Flex.
though, right?
I guess, is it Deku?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Link should talk and tell me.
That's true. That's why he probably doesn't talk, because he doesn't want to get corrected
That's smart.
by every jackass on the internet.
That's so valid. I relate to Link.
Clectacular says, is it just me, or was the Jabu Ruins boss awful? I've never struggled with the Zelda boss before, but this one took me 15 minutes because I entered the area without any swordsman meter. It's a funny phrase. And the boss wasn't dropping any refill bits. Without swordsman mode, all you can do in the last phase is very slowly yank belly bubbles off the boss while it's stunned airborne, because no echoes can reliably reach it. And then when it falls, very slowly chip away at its HP with bombfish. So strange to have such limited options in a game whose whole point is puzzle-solving creativity. And other people were jumping into the comments to be like, I killed him with seagulls. I killed him in other ways too. There's other ways to have at him. But yeah, thoughts on that boss?
P thing.
Frickin'
thing.
P
every
hat.
time.
hat.
I need to
Yeah.
find this pea hat.
Yeah. You're busy with an NY hat. Visual
That's right.
viewers are losing it.
Playoffs, baby.
That's right. Playoffs.
I'm wearing a Mets hat. We just made it to the playoffs today.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, but that boss, I was I'm sounding overly critical, so you can cut my mic, but the boss, I just thought his design sucked. It just looked like a Sesame Street character. Like it just looked really simple and boring. It's rare to play a Nintendo game and kind of be turned off by like that just design is sloppy. It's just there's nothing cool about it. I don't know. It wasn't working for
I
me.
thought he kind of was slang when he first came out. He sort of like sized you up and like did a little side sachet and was like, oh, and then like went to the boss fight. I was feeling it then. But yeah, popping his back sets felt not great. I wasn't a fan of that.
He was kind of cool when like the water dropped out and he was kind of like flying.
That
like,
was
between.
cool.
That was nice.
Yeah, I did like that.
Yeah, I like how they're using kind of the water cubes, even though in Tears of the Kingdom they had like the water spheres. Because like, yeah, that's inherently cool to have like sectioned off floating water. You can reuse that back to back in games. That's fun as hell. Also, I really liked in kind of the build up to the boss, just navigating those little water alleys and stuff like that. But the first time that I realized like, oh, I can like jump out towards the screen, even though it's kind of like a forest environment in the still world, but it's all horizontal. Do you know what I mean? But you had to jump out and like, oh, the trees will catch you, and the trees, because they've pivoted 90 degrees, are now like a little ledge and you can kind of platform around. Like,
I don't know what you mean by that. I couldn't visualize what you just said.
My words, they're not working the way I want them to.
Yeah.
Imagine like just a forest with the trees, but then it was turned straight up vertical, like the entire land, and then you're swimming around inside of that. So it was cool to be able to jump out of the water onto the trees and use the trees as a platform. Is nothing?
I can't do it.
Jeffem, can you speak Haley? Am I blowing this?
I don't know how to describe this differently.
A sideways lake that the trees are sticking out this way.
Yep.
So you can swim up to the surface and then fall out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffem.
And Jeffem, can you tell Haley that I appreciate her being on this deepest dive?
No, I can't.
Okay, great.
It needs to come from you, and it needs to come from the heart.
Yeah, from the heart.
You wouldn't understand it if I tried to explain it anyway. Let's see what else we got.
Love?
Hey, what is going on here? So you finish this whole dungeon, and then Tri powers up because Tri gets a little help from their friends every time you beat this because they're all trapped in the big monster's stomachs or whatever. I do like the little seeing all the Tri friends coming down and stuff, but
yes, they're so cute.
They give me because they're kind of
so
pretty cute.
They're like little Princess Mononoke bobbly head guys, you know.
Yeah, or like
Stars and Galaxy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to use a different Ghibli reference with the little soot stars, but
yep, we'll take it.
Yep. Same thing. We're all thinking of cute little guys. I mean, there's nothing better than a swarm of cute little guys.
Just a bunch of little Jeffems floating down from the top.
That's right.
But anyways, now you can create echoes at a distance is the power up. But I haven't really messed with it yet because I really stopped at this stopping point. I do wish the bind ability. I think I'm just so used to Tears of the Kingdom at this point that it's weird not to be able to like extend it and shorten it.
Yes.
Have you also had that feeling like muscle memory is telling me I should be able to do it? They make it look exactly like Ultra Hand, except you can't move it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, although I do every time I have to relearn that every time that it comes up, I feel like, but then I do kind of enjoy the puzzle element of like, okay, so I need to like move closer to it so that when I move, I have more room to move backwards to then move it backwards, like I enjoy the puzzle element that it becomes instead of just the lazy like pick it up, set it right there with my joystick. But
they build it into the puzzles in some fun way.
Yeah,
where it's like you have to lift it up, so it's like, well, I'm going to build a water elevator first and then grab it and then swim it up so it also raises. I hope they do more with those kind of things.
Did you guys struggle with the one where it's like a lazy river going around a circle, and then there's like 3 levels of that, and the very last one there's a gate, so you can't just lift it up and put it around, and you can't connect to it on the back side of the gate because it's too far away. And I was building bed ramps and I was doing a million things, and then I realized if I just follow and it lets the connection get long, and then once it's behind, I just lift it up. It was like such an obvious answer. But I was like, oh, I got to jump up so that I could lift it over the gate. But then they had a fake ceiling, which I thought was kind of lame. I was like, no, the play box stops here. You can't jump over this fence. I was like, oh, that's kind of... make the fence like infinite then so I can't see the top, I feel like. But anyways.
I'm totally with you. It's so rare.
I do agree with that.
Yeah. Or like the last 3 Zelda games, like they never tell you no. And that was an instance of like, oh, can't jump over this thing that looks like you can jump right over. It's like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, they need to not show me the tops of fences because that definitely got me, especially the first time I encountered it. And then, the second time I was like, oh yeah, this just means infinite fence, even though it doesn't look like it. It looks like I should be able to jump over it.
Right. It's funky. Have you all hit in on the right stick yet? Have you used that much? So if you're not in a 2D section, if you hit in on the right stick, it goes like broop, and the camera goes directly overhead.
I didn't know
For like,
that.
yeah, for like a
wow.
full top down, which can come in handy. It's kind of funky how it like, they kind of have to do some trickery in the classic isometric vein of like the trees aren't really vertical, they're kind of leaning and stuff. So everything kind of looks a little wonky at times. But it kind of helps when you're trying to line stuff up directly. And specifically where I've used it a couple times is like the little swordsman blue energy floating around. I'll be like, why can I not grab that? I feel like I'm right next to it. And then I'll hit the right stick in and I'll go bloop, and I'll be like, oh, I was so far away from that. It was just like a perspective trick to make me think that was right in my face. But it's a funky thing. What do we think about the dungeons? We've done kind of 2 larger dungeons so far. I know Zelda fans have been screaming they want to return to classic dungeons. This isn't quite that. And I'm curious if like they're all going to kind of follow this model that Tears of the Kingdom also had of like, here's 5 areas, go find the 5 areas, and then that's it.
These are the right length for me, I
Same
feel
here.
like. They're just long enough that they feel like a substantial dungeon, but they're not so long that I start getting frustrated. And I recognize that that might not be the popular opinion, and that certainly might not be the like lifelong Zelda fan opinion, because I haven't really struggled in any of these dungeons other than in the first one when I didn't know to rip the shield off of the guy and had to look it up. But they feel like the right length to me. I have trouble kind of parsing like if they're doing good enough for the actual Zelda fans, or if like I'm the new Zelda fan and they're catering to me,
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not a big puzzle guy. And I feel like they're the right level. I think having that structure makes it feel really understandable. It really makes it all manageable to be like, okay, you go to these quadrants, you collect the thing, make it back. And I guess I just, you can quabble with certain things and quibble with certain things and squabble over other things. But at the same time, it's like they probably have the analytics that show a lot of folks dropping off and getting stuck in classic dungeon designs. That's probably why they're adamantly trying to make these things a little bit easier. But I don't know, Haley, you like puzzles? How are you feeling about these things?
I like them. I've thought there's some interesting parts, and I like the chaos rooms like we were talking about, so it feels a little bit different. I also like that there's some parts of the quote unquote dungeon like outside, so like getting to the dungeon's a challenge, and then there's sort of these in between rift areas, and then you get in the dungeon, you do something in there. So it kind of feels like it's a journey from like, oh, now I'm doing a puzzly structured bit that's not just necessarily in a cave the whole time. It's like a lead up to those 3 things.
I've been enjoying them as well, but that is one of those things that kind of leads me to my feeling of like, well, this is a smaller, more quaint kind of thing, and it's not like there are some times where it's like, oh, there's a room over there that I haven't gotten to in this dungeon, and now I have the thing or whatever, and I can get into it, and then you go there and it's like just one tiny square with like a treasure chest in it, and then you open the chest and it's like 20 rupees, and it's like, well, okay, like I don't get the same thrill from exploring every room in a dungeon that I got from the old ones, but I can't deny that there aren't times in those old dungeons where I would be frustrated to no end because it's like, what do I do next? Like, how do I get there? Or what is this puzzle? So
yeah,
it's probably the smart choice, especially for this type of Zelda game.
Yeah,
I don't hold it against them.
Yeah, and just to like spread out the items instead of like, oh, you get the hook shot in this dungeon, isn't that crazy? It's gonna be the entire theme of this. Instead, it's just kind of like, you almost get like that level of item in so many rooms throughout the dungeon. I'm like, okay, here's this new enemy, it'll give you this power up, and then you can use that to conquer this little puzzle in this area.
Yeah, you get like a spider and a bomb fish and a water cube, and it's like, well, okay, I'm set.
Yeah, for sure. Tech Beat Nick writes in and says, having done a couple of the rifts, both optional and main quest, they reminded me of a different take on the shrines from Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom. These bite-sized puzzles feel a touch meatier than the shrines, but I love how they focus on teaching or exploring a specific echo or echo mechanic. Yeah, that is cool. I mean, I think they could have gotten away with just having shrine equivalents, but I do like that they're trying to make it a little more baked into the world. Of just kind of, here's a little rift, you go rescue her friends, the end.
Yeah, and I like that it's not 150 of them or whatever.
Right,
like,
right.
There's fewer, but they're a little more meaningful, and it's just kind of traverse this weird weird looking area for a little bit and then get out.
Yep.
And that's not too bad.
Yeah, I think I read that the like total completionist run of this game is still only in the like low 30-hour
Oh,
range.
really? Okay.
And I think that's, I don't know. I think that's interesting after Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to just have this thing where, I mean, if it's anything like what I've done so far, all 30 whatever of those hours are going to be meaningful and meaty and everything. But just a very, at least so far, like a very solid start to finish kind of thing without too much random wandering and trying to find, as cool as it is that there are 150 shrines and 10,000 Korok seeds or whatever, like, I'm just glad that I can approach this game and really feel like I'm going to get everything this game wanted me to get out of this game. And I don't have to feel like I left 80 hours of content on the table, you know?
Yep, absolutely. Greg Pivo says, to borrow a Leo Vaderism from the Mass Effect Deepest Dive, there was a, quote, Nintendo Switch amount of people at the celebration after you complete the dungeon when the Zora King and Queen were playing their duet. I enjoyed the dungeon itself, but definitely felt a little bit like the Breath of the Wild, push 5 buttons, scatter in the dungeon and fight the boss style, and all the running around between Zora Kingdoms and chasing a rabid Jabu in the lead up started to fatigue me a little bit. Just let me into the dungeon already. Yeah, we'll see. It's probably going to be that level of story beat for all these areas, if I had to guess.
There was a lot of, okay, oh, you want to get into this place? Okay, well, first go do this, and then that guy's going to tell you to go do here. And like, I think in that sense, the tone helps that it's a little lighthearted and it's just kind of goofy interactions whenever you get to a person. It's not taking it too seriously, but I do wonder, like, I've been using the fast travel quite a bit here.
Yes.
Which I'm glad they added to it, but I don't feel that drive of like, oh, I should just live out in this world the entire time while I'm going from one place to the next again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, my strategy so far has been to just kind of like explore around a little bit so I unlock a lot of those fast travel places. And then and this is just my experience for, I guess, just the Zora area because that's really all we've done so far, but once I started that kind of series of events where, you know, you go up here and then they're like, oh, you got to talk to the chiefs. Like it was very fast to get into all of those things because I had already unlocked all the fast travel points. So it was just I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the adorable dog.
Haley has a cute dog.
That Haley has just brought in. So, you know, that helped, I think, a lot to just have already explored that and then be like, oh, we went to the cross whatever plaza to play our music and just be like, okay, boop, I'm there.
Yep.
Now I'm watching this cutscene.
Yep, for sure. I'm curious to see if Jacob Geller, with his world immersion insistence in Tears of the Kingdom, is flashing around in this game or if he's insisting on walking, but I bet he's jumping around. He caved. Veggie writes in and says, I've been split on some of the combat overall in this game, but I've personally found it more enjoyable using echoes that can be used in a way that feel more like natural weapons or items. For example, summoning the armadillo in rapid succession is almost like having a homing projectile in a Zelda game. Also, it's fun to summon unreasonably large creatures and then just chuck them at enemies. Zelda must have biceps for days.
There's a couple where she struggles. It's cute. She's like, and then she's like, I can't do it. And she doesn't even finish.
Yeah, it's funny when I was streaming it. There were a lot of people in the Twitch chat that were commenting on like, oh my God, it's so weird to hear like Zelda's exertion sounds. Like that's like the biggest really, I don't know, beacon that you're playing as somebody different, you know? It's like, oh yeah, I guess you're not hearing the classic Link chirps and chimes running around the world here.
I mean, it's really the same, just like a octave higher though, right? Like,
but just think of what that means. It's game changing. Shack Attack writes in and says, in the 2D side-scrolling sections, take a second and listen to the gentle pitter-patter as Zelda climbs up a ladder. It's so satisfying. Rick G says, the subtle difference of the sound when walking on hard surfaces / tiles between Link and Zelda is such a cool detail. Also, the sound design and music in general is awesome.
Nintendo's really good at sound design. I mean, I wrote a book about Animal Crossing, and so I have several pages about this, but the like attention to detail and like, oh, the snow is really crunchy when you're on it, and like the tile makes a really different, I don't know. It's also very good in this game. I agree.
Yeah, Brian Paradis writes in and says, I love the animation and sound of the Hyrule crest slapping on the screen when you complete a mission. It's like, it's satisfying and totally fits with the playful vibe of the game. And then Nick O writes in over on Patreon. Again, all these people are supporting us on Patreon. That's how you can write in to the next episode, the next discussion. You can fix everything we've gotten wrong so far. Fix Jeff by writing in patreon.com/MinnMax.
Please fix me.
Nick O writes in though, and they say, can we talk about how great the soundtrack is? The overworld theme is easily one of my favorites in the already phenomenal Zelda music pantheon. It definitely snuck up on me. Whereas one of those things where like the first time I played it, I was like, all right, that seems like a good overworld theme. Let's see if I can pull it up here. And then like when I went back to play the game, it's like, oh wait, no, this is definitely getting its hooks in me. This is sinking in. This is the overworld theme.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's very good. How they can still have a new take on a Zelda overworld theme that's like, yeah, that feels like it slots right into 35 years of history is unbelievable.
And I like the soundtracks from the last two games. It's nice to just kind of have more classic vein Zelda music again.
Yep.
Like I miss that.
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. Where would you guys rank Spirit Tracks' overworld theme for the big Zelda overworld ranking?
One of the only Zelda games I haven't played.
Refresh our memory.
I will. This is in my top. This is in my top. You guys, everybody.
It is top.
This is in my top 5 Zelda tracks.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, wait for it.
Yeah, this is good.
You get it.
It feels like a train. Like they're so good at that. It feels like
just like a train.
Like they're so smart with that kind of stuff.
Welcome to Hour 2 of the Deepest Dive, where we just listen to the amazing Spirit Track soundtrack from front to back, everybody.
My favorite Zelda song is Midna's Lament. That's my favorite.
Oh, well, now we got to hear that.
It's very somber. It's not as but it just is the most emotional one. I love it.
It feels like we're being lamented.
Yeah. They overlay that when you're riding around, but the most intense part is when Midna is like dying on your back and you're running to the castle to save her, and this piano creeps in and you're just like, oh my god, like you don't know if you're not fast enough, she's gonna die or not. I remember just being a teen and be like, run!
Oh my
run!
god!
While this is playing. It's so good.
All right, we got who are you? Darg writes in. Oh, it says playing this with my 6-year-old. She was pretty proud when she made her first bed staircase. It's fun watching her figure out some of these puzzles on her own. Hell yeah. A lot of people playing with their kids.
The way that they did the bed in the beginning of the game was very smart. Like I'd seen the trailers and stuff, so I knew that you could use beds to make stairs and everything. But they show you like a ridiculous bed staircase that already just exists in the world right after you learn the bed echo.
Right.
And so I hope that does a good job of priming people. Like, yeah, you can just stack stuff weird. Like, yeah. Here's just a weird stack of beds. You didn't even do that one. Someone else stacked these beds like this.
Yeah, I don't like using the box and the table. I feel like just give me a bed. It's so much more fun. Even though it's bigger and messier, I feel like you can make a cooler, more compact box table contraption, but not interested.
I thought that was interesting that to use the bed sacrifices space.
Right.
But then using the box/desk is a hassle because you have to perfectly number them out, otherwise the one disappears before you can hop onto the right box.
Right.
So it's like if you don't have enough space and you can't use the bed. Now that I have the water block, this is all out the window.
Yeah,
before I had the water block, it was timing that all out.
Can you imagine if you get a water bed? Just the incredible potential of that for platforming. Joseph Stanichar writes in and says, one of my favorite quality of life enhancements so far, thank you, Joseph, former intern Jeff, remember him? So far is that you automatically catch a fairy when you walk into it and you have an empty bottle. Accidentally having it heal you because you got too close was always a pain in past Zelda games, but no more. That's huge, Joseph. Thank you for writing in on that.
It's an implication that the fairies are girls, and they're just like, oh, Queen, I'll hop in here. But Link has to forcibly catch them and scoop and bottle an animal.
Yuck.
Yuck.
Garrett Hullfish writes in and says, I always love when Zelda games get silly. My favorite gag so far is the wanted poster throughout the kingdom.
She's so ugly.
Yeah, if you zoom in,
It's just like it reminds me of a Tales of Symphonia did this gag really well too. I don't know if you guys have played that game.
I don't remember that beat, but
there's they just make Lloyd extremely ugly. And I went to a convention a while back and someone cosplayed as ugly Lloyd from the poster. And it was just like my favorite bit I had ever seen.
That's so specific. But yeah, if you zoom in with the Switch accessibility feature, you can check on how crudely drawn Zelda is with her massive nose. If you use My Nintendo in the US, you can even get a tote bag displaying the wanted poster. Really?
That's why no one recognizes
I would want
her.
that.
Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Ben K says, what the heck? I accidentally jumped into a pot with Zelda and you have the ability to move around and hide. Yeah, Kelsey was talking about this. Was this possible in Link's Awakening? Does this mean there are stealth sections later in the game? The Legend of Solid, Echoes of Snake? I hope not, but probably.
I mean, the start had a little bit of a stealth thing if you did it that way.
Yep. Hello Andre says over there on Patreon, I love how right out of the gate, the moment you're free to explore, you can basically break the game and climb to the top of the trees and skip a large portion of the encounters. Speedruns are going to be so fun for this game.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I feel like I was, on the southern edge of the lake? There's kind of this area. I think that's where I got to. And I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be over here yet. There's kind of some weird spots, but that's the fun of the structure of the game they have here.
Yeah, there's a couple places where it feels like they could have put a little Treeto or something up high, because I went up and it was kind of just a tree at the top. I was like, okay, come on. Maybe like something?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one section when I had finished what we were supposed to play, and I was just kind of filling out that side of the map. And there was just one section on my map that hadn't been filled in at all. And so I went there and got up there. It was just kind of like part of a river, and there was absolutely nothing. Like no enemies, no half sunken treasure chest, just like nothing for an entire chunk of the map. And it's like, okay, guys.
Do you think things spawn in when the story progresses to a
Maybe.
point?
Yeah, I wonder. Not sure. We have, who is this? Starkiller says, having a filter on the map to show you what collectibles, like heart pieces, you've already picked up is really nice for the completionist to me. That is huge. Especially like, if you want to just, I don't recommend it, but if you wanted to look online to see like where are all the heart pieces, just being able to see like you've already picked them up here. It's just so much easier than being like, okay, I think I got that one. Like that's game changing.
Mm-hmm. More stuff like that in every game, please.
Please. Edward Ryan writes in and says, I want to be mad at the frame rate, leg stutter, but I just can't. It's still playable, and when it clears up, the game is enjoyable. It's not a problem within dungeons when combat needs to be fluid. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. I'm amazed only one person wrote in about it. And I'm playing like when it's streaming, so it's like on my computer monitor, so I'm really close to it. But I've actually gotten a little bit sick at times because I think the frame rate's kind of jumping all over the place. But
I had that problem with Link's Awakening, and I didn't finish that one partially because of that. I haven't gotten the motion sickness as bad in this one, but I definitely have noticed the slowdown in some of the larger areas.
Yeah.
It was immediately surprising to me because it starts really early too in some of the open areas that they couldn't figure that out. I'm more annoyed I've gotten over it as I've been playing, but I was more annoyed by just the bottom blur across the bottom to sell the bokeh effect of I immediately was like, is there a setting that I can turn off? And then I realized, there's no settings menu whatsoever for anything. It's just one of those Nintendo things of I don't like it. It makes me feel like I need to put on bifocals or something while I'm playing.
I wonder how much of that, you talking about, it's so cute, just like a little diorama. It's so cute.
That takes me out of it.
Exactly.
Because it's like, as soon as I'm walking down, I want to see what's coming up and I don't need it to be blurred for this fake kind of vision. And they don't do it at the top. So it's like, I don't lose anything up there by I'm not going to immediately forget, this isn't actually a diorama that I'm looking at through a photo lens for some reason.
Yeah.
With my
Metaphor
eyes.
Fantasio does that too, but forward, where you're running, it's drives me nuts because I'm trying to look forward to see I need to go to that staircase, and it's blurred as if I don't have. Also, being a glasses wearer, maybe it makes it extra annoying because it's just what my eyes do when I don't have my glasses on. So I'm like, are my glasses on? I have to double check if it's just my own crappy eyes or if the game's just annoying and doing it to me. And I did check both Metaphor and this game to see if I can turn it off, and you can't.
Yeah.
Mason Cowles says it's a small detail, but the fact that the rifts have been around seemingly forever is fascinating. And the fact that they've been specifically taking children, apparently to never be seen again, was a terrifying detail that really set the stage for how scared everybody is of these things. Yeah, this isn't a cutesy world. This is a terrifying children-absorbing rift hellhole. Yeah, I mean, predictions for the story? Do we think Ganon's going to be the final boss?
I don't know. I feel like not. I feel like whenever they show Ganon near the start, he ends up not being the big baddie.
Yeah. So who else do we got?
I mean, they even say, like, oh, we thought it would get better when we killed, I mean, they called like that blue guy or whatever.
Right,
But like,
right.
oh, we thought it would all get better if we got rid of him, and seems like it's just worse now.
It'd be kind of cool, I guess, if it was the king. That would be the coolest face-off. It was Zelda versus evil King Hyrule.
Like the imposter king?
What if it wasn't the imposter? Yeah, I assume the imposter one. And
Maybe there's
But he didn't exist until the rifts already happened.
sure.
Yeah, he
Okay,
might
so
love
you're
the
looking for like
rifts.
the source of the rifts is going to
Yeah.
be. It's probably Gwei.
maybe there's like dark versions of tries
Ooh,
that
okay.
are creating them.
Yeah.
And then they big blob together, and that's like the big final boss.
Let's
I could
try
see that.
backwards. I are Ertz.
It was Urt all along. I'm expecting there's going to be something about. I mean, maybe I'm just thinking of Mario Odyssey, but like spoilers within a Mario Odyssey, like when you use Cappy on Bowser is one of those like, oh, of course it's. I'm waiting for that equivalent in this game of like in the end, like, oh, of course I can make an echo of Zelda herself, and I can have a whole army of Zelda
just
storming
Link.
across the hill. I mean, we basically already kind of have that, but yeah, it's something like that, or just like we can make a bunch of echoes of Ganon and just like storm the final castle with a bunch of
That'd be
Ganons or
cool.
something.
That's a
Like,
good prediction.
I think there's gonna be something cool. At least I hope
Like
that they
all
have
the
some.
all the tries in the land come stand behind her, and she's able to go shwa and make like 50 Ganons.
Right,
And then you just
right.
start running forward.
Yeah. I mean, the Switch
Be a
would
vibe.
implode, but it'd be cool in theory.
Just in a cutscene, and then when they cut back, they've won.
Did you have fun? Please take our survey.
You are really happy about that cutscene.
Daniel Dwiggins writes in, says, I'm having a great time with the ecosystem and spawning sea urchins on top of almost any enemy. There's something so satisfying, though, in just throwing rocks at everything. The sound design and super quick death animation when a stone pummels a moblin always gives me a nice chuckle for some reason.
Also, just dropping rocks and other heavy things to break things is very fun. I forget where this was, but there was a big stack of boxes somewhere, and I was having trouble figuring it out. And then then you drop a rock on it, and it just smashes through a couple of the boxes. It's like, of course.
Always satisfying. It's like, yep, absolutely. Like the first time I grabbed a moblin and like dropped him off in the lake, I was like, okay, this is already a good game. This is all I want to do. Just let me have the freedom to kill enemies slowly this way. It's such a stupid idea.
You guys got to start hitting villagers with their own pots, man.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
It's a game changer. Yeah, real satisfying.
Yeah. Very, very cowardly that you can't bind a villager. I was looking forward to that. Just like, really break it in a full immersive sim style way. Like, wouldn't it be fun just to like grab somebody, like you can kind of do in Tears of the Kingdom and stuff, and just like haul them to the other side of the map? I think that's fun. But apparently this game is scared of fun. I don't know.
It can barely not have frame stuttering issues when it's just the map.
I know.
I think if you could start moving the assets, it wouldn't implode.
I would have such a rough time. All right. Well, hey, thank you to everybody who went to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's and submitted comments over there. Again, if you support us at any tier, you can submit comments for the next discussion, which is going to be happening 2 weeks from now. We have a post up on Patreon. You submit your comment there, then we read it, and we thank thee in this discussion format here. And then also a reminder, if you enjoyed this format, you want to help support the Deepest Dive format directly, you can unlock the podcast version of the Deepest Dive format. All of our previous Deepest Dives, a ton more in that bonus podcast feed. And if you do it before this Friday, you're supporting independent games media, and we'll DM you a code for one of the best games of the year. Thanks to the developers at Sunset Visitor, we'll give you a code for 1000 times resist. So get a great game, support this whole format, and submit your thoughts, and get a more convenient way to consume future and past Deepest Dives. That's the exchange we're trying to make with you, so we appreciate it. That's it. Final thoughts, y'all?
Stamp of approval. I'm excited for the next bit. I'm excited to see, like, okay, they set the table. Does it do the classic Nintendo one-uppance of itself over and over to rise to this like, wow, that was a fun game crescendo at the very end.
Yeah, I feel like, when I was talking to Gene Park, actually, shout out, they were very helpful for trying to map out what the deepest dive structure should be, because I didn't know how open or how linear this thing was going to be. And they were saying that, like, I guess I won't say it, but it made me really confused about the structure of this game moving forward. Of like, are they going to have some big twists and turns here? If it's just going to be checking off a handful more dungeons, I think that'll be a solid game, but I'm kind of bracing for some weird stuff to be happening in the back half of this game, but I have no idea what it could be, which is a fun spot to be in.
Yeah, I'm a little up in the air about what else can they do with enemy designs that we haven't already kind of covered. We've gotten like climb up stuff, we've gotten blow up stuff.
Gwei.
Like I want to Gwei, yes, Gwei nightmares. I don't like. I hope we can come back and I can say that I was surprised by all of these other things that added new kind of gameplay stuff to it. But I don't know what those things would be, so we'll see.
Yep. Kelsey, can you give me one bold prediction?
Oh, it has to be bold, huh? I feel like I liked my prediction earlier about the Erts, the anti-tries.
Yeah.
I think that, and I think
Watch
my
them
bold
be a
prediction is they're going to be just as cute, and you're going to feel a
Just
little
inverted color because they're inverted.
Yeah.
Inerts.
Okay, we're melting down. This is too much. No, pack it up, everyone. We don't know what we're talking about anymore. All right, thanks everybody for supporting the Deepest Dive format. We'll be back in 2 weeks, with a new episode just for you. See you, everybody.
Bye.
Did you know that you can double the amount of MinnMax podcasts you listen to every single week right in your favorite podcast app? All you have to do is go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, jump in at that $5 tier, and then you're good to go. You have the podcast version of The Deepest Dive, Max Spoilers, MinnMax interviews, weekly access to Bonus Pod, which is our Patreon exclusive podcast. It's very good. And early and ad-free versions of the MinnMax Show podcast every single week. There's a ton of content in there, and it's a way to directly support what we do here at MinnMax.